Folsom City Council on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Kozlowski,
Here.
Sheldon,
Here.
Howell,
Here.
and Aquino.
Here, and if you'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I can't lift my finger, darn it. Okay. Are there any agenda updates?
There are no agenda updates this evening.
Okay, do we have anybody who would like to speak to business from the floor? This is the time that you can address the council on items that are not on the agenda, but because they are not on the agenda, we cannot deliberate or take action. Lori Markey, if you want to come forward. If there's anybody else who wants to speak to business from the floor, if you could hand a blue card to the officer over here.
Very good.
Right over here. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Markey. I am a Folsom resident here in historic Folsom since 2002. So I've been here for a while. My kid's been through the school here. I came 2 weeks ago, and I'm coming to ask that you add to the agenda, if not this evening, for the next city council meeting. I would like to see changes, and along the lines, have you heard of the 8 can't wait policies? I would like to see those implemented here in Folsom. We have a problem here. People are denying it's a problem. We have a problem, and if you have any black friends here, you know this. Or other people of color as well. So I would like to see us implementing all 8 of the 8 can't wait policies. We cannot any longer wait. Another person I know just 2 days ago had their child called the N-word, 4 years old, in one of our parks by another 6-year-old kid, 6, 7 years old. What's happening, I had a friend of mine who was beaten by the police last year, a black person beaten, but he's homeless, so people didn't care. But it's happening here too, and it needs to change. Would you like me to go through the 8 can't wait, or is that sufficient to state that?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I think we've all received the emails, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing is I'd like to see a committee developed of Black Folsom community members to develop a real curriculum for our Black History Month. I literally just found out this past weekend about the fact that when black people first came to this country, they did not come in 1619 on a ship stolen from Africa to be sold as slaves. They came as immigrants, they lived here, they worked here, they voted here, until we figured out as white people how to capitalize on slavery, and they lost their right to vote. I literally just learned that this weekend. I did not know about the Greenwood Massacre or about the Black Wall Street until this past year, and I, in fact, just learned about Juneteenth this past year as well, and went to my first celebration on Friday night. I'm a 53-year-old woman. I don't know any of this. And in asking even my 30-year-old daughter what they learned in school about this, they don't know it either. Stuff has to change, and it needs to change now. And it starts with you helping to hold this community accountable and to stand up to a higher standard. You keep looking away like this is making you uncomfortable, and you know it makes people uncomfortable, and then you look like you're smirking behind there. Okay. So I'm requesting it to be brought to an agenda so that we can start discussing how we're going to make changes in our community.
Okay, thank you. Lori, just want to let you know, we are required to give 72 hours notice to put something on the agenda, so we cannot put
Okay,
it on tonight.
I understand.
And just want to make sure you're aware that it's the school board who handles curriculum and makes curriculum decisions for the school
I am reaching
district.
out to them as well.
Okay,
But I
perfect.
think that you have influence here, but as far as the 8 can't wait, those are things that we can implement in our community.
Okay, very good. Thank you for coming out.
And can it be added to a future agenda?
I will talk about it with the city manager.
City manager not here?
She's here.
Can we not get an answer, if not on the next agenda, on one coming up in the future? Is there a commitment to have this discussion in this community to start dealing with this?
We're having lots of conversations. I'm not going to commit tonight to putting it on the agenda. We've got a very full agenda right now.
Not right now, I'm saying even in the future.
I understand. I will reach out to you.
You have items of development, all purely money-driven, for the most part, on the agenda. Don't tell me we can't figure out how to squeeze in at some point in our future policies that are going to make it so that my friends here, your community members, feel safe.
Okay. I've noted that you have requested to put that on the agenda. Thank you.
I will be back until it's on there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Does anybody have any item they would like to pull?
I'll move consent.
Second.
Okay, Ernie, did you have any questions on anything on the consent calendar or want to pull it?
No.
Okay, then we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Sheldon,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
and Aquino.
Yes. Okay, please call the next item.
Your next item this evening is public hearing item number 11. This is resolution number 10472, a resolution determining that the 709 Natoma Street General Plan Amendment Project is exempt from CEQA and approving a general plan amendment to change the general plan land use designation for the 7,000 square foot project site located at 709 Natoma Street from single-family high density to community commercial. Presenting this evening will be Principal Planner Steve Banks, and for those of you following along, the PowerPoint presentation begins on page 101.
Okay, and if I could just please remind my colleagues, we have a packed agenda tonight. If we could hold our questions until the end of all the presentations, that would be very appreciated. So go ahead, Mr. Banks.
Good evening, Mayor Aquino, Council Member Steve.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Aquino, Councilman Steve Banks with the Community Development Department. As Krista mentioned on page 101, the presentation begins. This is a city-initiated general plan amendment to correct an existing mapping error that resulted in a parcel located on Natoma Street having 2 different general plan land use designations. If we move to the next slide, this is page 102 in the packet. This is a vicinity map. As you can see, the project is located on the south side of Natoma Street, slightly west of Riley Street. Moving to the next slide on page 103. As I noted, there's an existing inconsistency on a single parcel that resulted in 2 different general plan land use designations for the same parcel. The purpose of this amendment is to change the general plan land use designation from single-family high density to community commercial. The community commercial land use designation would be consistent with the existing zoning designation, which is a C1 zoning designation. The project site has been used for commercial purposes for well over 30 years. It currently houses a hair salon, and there's also a proposal that's recently been approved by the Historic District Commission to provide an addition on the same property for that hair salon. So staff has had no concerns with the general plan land use designation being changed to community commercial. Moving to page 104 on the next slide, this is a general plan amendment exhibit illustrating what I just referred to, the existing designation single family high density. With approval of this amendment, the new designation would be community commercial, or CC. Moving to the next page, on page 105, this is a site photograph. As you can see the existing hair salon on the left, and to the right of that, there'll be a future hair salon adjacent to that. And lastly, moving to page 106, the Historic District Commission did review this proposal and does recommend approval of the general plan amendment, and we are forwarding that recommendation to the City Council this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Banks?
This is maybe kind of a comment, and I'm not sure exactly where this came from, but I've spoken to the owner of the parcel, and I'm a little bit confused about the requirement moving forward for them to provide 5 bicycle parking spaces there. I understand that was going to be difficult to get on the site. And maybe it's just me, but I don't know that me or any of my friends have ever hopped on their bike to go get their hair done and then hopped on their bike to drive home. And I don't remember ever seeing any bicycle parking at any other hair salons in Folsom, so I thought that was kind of an odd requirement.
The bicycle parking requirement is a requirement of all commercial projects, whether it be hair salons or other types of commercial uses. I can't speak to whether other hair salons have bicycle parking spaces, but this is a requirement from the municipal code that we placed on the project, and whether those spaces are used or not, that remains to be seen. But it's not unreasonable to think that employees may bike to work occasionally.
I know them.
And
They
again,
don't
that's
bike to work.
That's a code requirement that we placed on the project and other projects like this.
Okay, I just think it's something that we should probably take a look at, and please, somebody let me know if they find another hair salon anywhere in Folsom that has bicycle parking.
Fair point.
Any other questions for Mr. Banks? Ernie, do you have any questions?
No.
Mike, any questions?
No, nothing, thanks.
I'll move the item.
No, we need to open the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this item? If you want to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and now we'll entertain a motion.
I will still move the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Howell, a second by Councilmember Kozlowski. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Sheldon,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
and Aquino.
Yes. Next item, please.
Okay, our next item this evening is item number 12, accessory dwelling unit ordinance hearing and determination that the project is exempt from CEQA. This is ordinance number 1306, an ordinance amending certain sections in chapter 17.52 and repealing and reenacting chapter 17.105 of the Folsom Municipal Code pertaining to accessory dwelling units. Presenting this evening will be Principal Planner Desmond Parrington, and if you're following along, your PowerPoint presentation begins on page 164.
Mayor Aquino, members of the City Council, this is Desmond Parrington, Principal Planner in the Community Development Department. I'm here before you tonight to seek a recommendation to approve the draft accessory dwelling unit ordinance, as the city clerk mentioned. On the following slide on page 166, there were a number of new laws that were enacted and that went into effect of January 1st of this year. The basic thrust of those laws is it made it much easier to do accessory dwelling units and limited cities and counties' ability to restrict those, particularly if they were less than 800 square feet in size and 16 feet or less. This is on page 168. ADUs have a number of benefits because they can allow for family members or young people to live on the same property in close proximity to the existing homeowners. They also allow folks to age in place, and they also allow for an additional source of income for those who may be on a fixed income. The key elements of the new ordinance are that we have limited the maximum size of ADUs to 850 square feet if they have 0 to 1 bedrooms, And if they have 2 or more bedrooms, they cannot exceed 1,000 square feet. Those are the smallest maximums that we can allow. In most cases, we do require parking of 1 parking space per ADU, but we are not allowed to require that in the historic district nor within a half-mile walking distance of a transit stop. Again, based on the feedback that we received both by the Planning Commission and by the Historic District Commission, and based on feedback that we got from the state, we have limited the height to 16 feet. If it's taller than 16 feet in the Historic District, then it goes to the Historic District Commission for review. If it is higher than 16 feet in the rest of the city, then it goes through our typical design review process that is spelled out in Section 1706 of the Folsom Municipal Code, which is a director-level design review with appeal to the Planning Commission. We've also provided design standards for those ADUs that are 800 square feet or larger or taller than 16 feet, and these could be used in evaluating when the commission evaluates an ADU and when staff evaluates the ADU. And again, these are designed to address building massing. So I'm on page 171. Building massing, scale, privacy, and a number of issues associated with that. So as shown on page 172. On page 173, we've also have developed specific design standards for those ADUs that are proposed in the historic district, given that that's a unique area of the city. So again, these would only apply to ADUs that are taller than 800 square feet, that are larger than 800 square feet or taller than 16 feet. And for those, they would need to meet those standards in the ordinance. The ordinance was reviewed by the State Housing and Community Development Department, which is the body that is responsible for implementing and enforcing the new state laws. And they provided us some feedback on those with some suggestions, which we've incorporated into the ordinance. There are a number of key policy issues that we would like to present and confirm with you this evening. First of all, that all ADUs that are greater than 16 feet require discretionary review. So based on feedback we got from the state, we have the option of either making those a staff level review or having those as a discretionary review by the Historic District Commission if they're in our historic district, or at a staff or a director level hearing with appeal to the Planning Commission if it's outside the city. So that's the first question. The next policy question is that we have limited, in the ordinance, we have limited ADUs that are within 50 feet of a state-listed historic property, like the Cone house on Scott Street there. If there's an ADU near there, it would be limited to 16 feet in height. It could not be any taller than that. The other thing that we'd like your input on is specifically related to height increases. So in the ordinance, we have established maximum heights that are allowed in the 2 areas of the city, the historic district and in the rest of the city. So in the historic district, ADUs cannot, even if they are approved by the Historic District Commission, cannot be greater than 25 feet without a variance. What staff is proposing is that we increase the rear setback for every half foot in height increase that I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. We increase the rear setback by 1 foot for every half foot in height that the ADU is increased by, starting at 18 feet. So today in our ordinance, the requirement is 5 feet from the rear yard setback. You can go up to 18 feet. What we are proposing is if you want to go further than 18 feet, then you would have to go an additional 1 foot increase in your rear setback for every half foot increase in height. So we would like your input on that, whether that's something that you're in agreement with. We did not propose the increase in both the rear and the side yard setback, because what that tends to do is force ADUs to the middle of the backyard, and it generally forces them to be narrower and taller, which really limits the design flexibility for architects and can lead to odd-shaped looking ADUs. The other question is about impact fees. Under state law, impact fees cannot be charged on ADUs that are 750 square feet or smaller. The feedback that we got from both the Historic District Commission and the Planning Commission was that they did want to charge impact fees on ADUs larger than 750 square feet. Under the law, we can do that, but the fee that's charged must be proportional to the size of the ADU in relation to the primary home on the site. So staff had originally proposed to not charge impact fees on ADUs that were above 750 square feet unless that required an increase in the pipe size to provide water, sewer, or drainage to the site. So the reason that we did that was because we are looking at ADUs as a potential source of increasing the city's housing supply. As you may be aware, we have a housing element update that's coming up that has to be submitted, has to be approved in 2021, and we have new development targets that we have to plan for housing that, for different income levels. And ADUs can be one source of housing that can satisfy those targets. And so that's why we wanted to encourage that, because ADUs, if done well, can be integrated into a neighborhood without dramatically changing the character of that neighborhood. So on the slide on page 176, we lay out the process here that ADUs would go through depending on their size and height. And this would be everywhere in the city with the exception of the Historic District. So if an ADU is 800 square feet or less, and if it's 16 feet tall or less, then it's automatically approved. There are no other design standards, and then it would go to building review and permitting for construction. If it's greater than 800 square feet, then it needs to meet the city's size and design standards. If it does that, it would be approved at the staff level and would be then issued go through the building review and then be issued a building permit. If it's taller than 16 feet, then it goes through, or it fails to meet the design standards noted above, then it would go to a staff level design review and a director level hearing. Based on that hearing, it could be appealed to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission would make a decision on the ADU. In the Historic District on page 177, the process is very similar, but has a few slight differences. Primarily that if the if the ADU is taller than 16 feet, then it goes to the Historic District Design Review, where staff will review it and present a recommendation for the Historic District Commission to review. And they can either approve it or deny it, and if there is an appeal, then it would go to City Council. So there are a number of benefits to enacting this ordinance now. First of all, because the new state law is in effect, we have to abide by that. And it means that any part of our current ordinance that's in conflict with state law is null and void. And by enacting this now, we can put in those objective design standards to help guide good design, put in standards for larger ADUs that protect privacy, and it provides a simplified housing process, a simplified process for review and approval of ADUs. And lastly, it helps us in terms of achieving our housing element development targets by providing what can be a source of affordable housing, particularly when it's provided to elderly family members or elderly residents or persons with disabilities. I think I forgot to mention something earlier in my presentation on page going back to page 175. With respect to the question about height, I failed to mention that in the historic district, we've identified the maximum height allowed under the ordinance as 25 feet. In the rest of the city, it would be 30 feet. The reason why we have established those heights is because, first of all, in the historic district, for the most part, structures tend to be many of the structures tend to be smaller in nature, and in the rest of the city, the height limit is 35 feet, and the city code currently, and also in the historic design and development guidelines, talk about the secondary nature of ADUs. And really that they are secondary to the primary dwelling, and as such should be designed with that in mind. So we did establish lower height limits. So the language in the ordinance is 25 feet or the height of the existing primary structure, whichever is less. And then in the rest of the city, 30 feet or the height of the primary structure, whichever is less. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. So going back to the slide on page 179, again, council is asking, the staff is asking that council review and approve the draft accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And if it is approved, it would then be heard at a second hearing at your next meeting, and then it would go into effect 30 days after adoption, which would be August 13th of this year. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments.
Carrie, you have any questions for Desmond?
Yeah, with regard to the impact fees, what other impact fees are we talking about? I'm not as worried about the water sewer connection stuff, but does that include school fees and all the rest of the impact fees that would normally be paid? Transportation related?
So so the city currently does not charge impact fees on accessory dwelling units, but the commissions wanted us to reserve the right to be able to do that in the future, and to make sure that those impact fees were proportional.
I personally think that we should be doing that, because these are effectively new units. People are going to live in them, and there's going to be impacts.
there may be impacts to those units. In discussions with in discussions with staff, the feeling was that in most instances, the water and sewer connections, at least the pipe size that feed those lots, would often be sufficient to address those needs.
Right, I agree
just
on the
wanna
water and
clarify
sewer
that
front. It's
these
the
are
rest
only-
of the fees.
I'm sorry, what?
I agree with the water and
Couldn't
sewer
hear you.
comment. What are the rest of the fees that would typically be paid? This is no different than new development to me.
So the other fees that, the other types of impact fees that would be imposed on accessory dwelling units would include school impact fees, and you know, if in the area south of Highway 50, there are a wide variety of impact fees, including county transportation fees. There are there are a wide variety of impact fees that are charged. Now, again, those are based on land use rather than on unit type in that instance. But another example would be the Humbug Willow Creek area. There are impact fees associated with, I believe, the Humbug Willow Creek area.
The point being here that you're building new units and there are going, so that increases the population, there's going to be impacts, and we should be charging fees.
So you're in support of charging impact fees on ADUs?
Yep.
Got
Yep.
it. Any other questions from you? Mike, do you have any questions? Your mic.
Couple comments and a question. The height restrictions, you asked us to give some, feelings about. I'm fine with the way that you've set those up. I don't have any particular issues with that. The exchange of more setback for more height, I'm not 100% confident that that's going to achieve a whole lot, except to push the massing of the buildings to the interior of a lot and away from the edges. And that then impacts the usability of the interior of the lot. So it could potentially make it, more difficult to get that extra car off the street that you want off the street if you have an approach from the other side. And you may just be buying yourself some extra setback area against a back fence that ends up not being so big that it's very usable. So that's one area where I don't necessarily have a problem with what you suggested. I'm not sure that it's going to achieve any real super positive effect to do it that way. So I'd be okay with keeping the standard setback regardless of the height if all of the other controls are in place to make sure that the design of the structure itself was sympathetic to the neighborhood and met the historic district design standards otherwise. So that would be the one thing. And then just a slightly nuanced view of the fee thing. I feel a little opposite of what Councilwoman Howell suggested, only for one specific reason, and that we are constantly in a deficit with regard to our RHNA numbers, the Regional Housing Needs Analysis allocation that we get here in Folsom. And these ADUs can potentially act as affordable housing units, depending on how they're used. And I would prefer that we not put fees on any of them right now until we see what the effects are of these changes to the law, and only add the fees after we get a sense of what the uptake is of people wanting to do ADUs. Because if, in fact, it becomes a widespread common thing throughout the city, and it is creating an impact issue, then certainly we would want to add fees to that. But if it remains a modest thing that doesn't affect us in a wholesale way, I think encouraging those ADUs is worth more than whatever the fees we would get on the prorated amount.
The reason why we tend to disagree with that is based on what we already know and this is predominantly in the historic district because that's where the majority of them are right now, they're not even remotely close to affordable.
Well, I mean.
And we have no control over it.
You could make the argument that no Folsom housing is affordable relative to lots of other places in the world. I'm just saying that the potential is there for them to act as affordable housing. I'd like to give people an opportunity to be creative and do that in other parts of the city without dropping fees on them in order to encourage them to keep it affordable.
Desmond, this is the city manager. We are reserving the right for adding those fees, correct? So there's that flexibility down the line that Councilmember Kozlowski is addressing.
That is correct. As I noted earlier, we don't currently charge impact fees on ADUs. This language would give us that ability to do that.
Yeah. Aside from that, I think the result here is very good. Thank you.
Ernie, do you have any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Back a few months when the state decided to run our businesses, how we build our houses in Folsom, I had a big discussion with in city council with the planning department because I felt they were not being proactive to state our objection to retain our historical aspect. Now, I'm still a little concerned because we had a period there for a while that it looked like it was a madhouse to build granny plots without any consideration for the historical aspect of the homes. Now, as this staff report reflected, I think it was good that you provided a draft report. You've got an interaction, and I think, according to the director of planning, that you now have a confidence that you can go up and challenge them for discretionary. Plus, I think the state pointed out that there were some discretionary options that we had that we didn't see before. So I'd like to compliment Pam and her staff and the whole city staff for changing their attitude as I see it and saying nobody on top is unapproachable. Okay, most of that came out of San Francisco senators on trying to get more housing regardless of what they look like. We happen to have the right spots as far as size in our historic district. Now, I'm still a little bit concerned that we do due diligence, but I'm much more comfortable now than I was a few months back. So again, on just my comment, I don't have a real argument on the height. I don't have the real argument on the impact fees. I don't think they'd be significant. But I do want to make the compliment to the finance department. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. We'll go ahead and open the public comment, and we do have a couple members of the public who would like to speak.
So our first speaker tonight will be James Thomas.
Welcome.
Thank you. Let's see. On the height requirement, that's my concern. I'm in the process of building one of these, and I have an architect kind of already working on plans and engineer, and I don't have the plans already submitted with the city here, but I've already started an electrical permit, and we already have trenches cut out in my property, and I'm concerned about the height. I don't want a 16-foot building in my property. I'd want to keep it closer to the fence line and try to be like the old rules of what was, I think, 35-foot maximum, or is the height of your house. That was the way it was. But if you keep making it where I have to come off the fence line, it's going to get taller. Then it's just not going to. It's getting too close to my house, and plus it's not going to match my neighborhood. My whole neighborhood is all 2 stories around me. And my roof is a 12 and 12 pitch. It's just not going to look right. My neighborhood being 16 foot tall, it's going to look like a shed. So I'm concerned about it. I want my neighborhood to look good. So that was my big thing, is just trying to keep the height taller. So I don't know. And like I said, I already started this. I got a bunch of money involved in it, and I don't want to have to go back to my architects and engineers and turn around and tell them to change all the plans, start over. I got to make it 16 foot, you know, so that's my concern. And like I said, I've already started it. If I could be grandfathered in, that's what I really, you know, my variance is, that's what I'd like to see, if I can be grandfathered into this, into the old way.
Mr. Wong, would you like to address that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. The 16-foot height limit is imposed by state law. That is why you see that in the ordinance. Having said that, if an application exceeds the 16-foot tall limitation, then that goes through design review process. Eventually, it might go up to Planning Commission, since this is outside the Historic District Commission area. So there is a way to seek commission approval for something that's in excess of 16 foot. That does not guarantee, however, that the commission will approve.
And I would strongly encourage you to get those plans done before you do any more work.
Well, Desmond knows who I am, but the thing is he told me if I submit the plans, it takes 20 days. Then they're going to write comments on it. It takes another 20 days. And between the 20 and the engineer doing it, I'm not going to have it completed by August 12th or 13th.
Well, do you want to keep doing work on this project without approval on the building plans? Spend all this money and then not be able to build what you think you're going to be able to build?
Okay.
You got to kind of look at it from the other side. You're investing the money. If it were me and I'm, geeky engineer, I'd want to know that I had approval before I spent a nickel.
Okay.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say that the 16 feet is not a limitation. It's just a trigger point for going through Historic District Commission review.
Right.
To
And
city attorney's point, so.
I don't live over there. I live in Briggs Ranch, so that's the thing, is we're in much taller, bigger buildings over there. And
So your project
property-
is in Briggs Ranch?
Yeah.
Well, then this is,
Yeah, it's actually
it's
the slide
immaterial.
before this one. It will go
Yeah, so
through
go
Planning
back on the
Commission
slide.
review.
There we go.
yeah, so there, it's still a staff level approval for taller
Yeah.
than 16 feet,
So I can go taller than 16 foot, 5 foot off my fence?
provided that the planning staff approves it.
Yeah, if they
Yeah.
approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your point, you made my point for me, which
Yes.
is that getting further away from a property line isn't necessarily the best use of the property, because you may just create a unusable rear yard or side
Right.
yard that
That's
is a little wider than normal, but isn't functional for much. So-
Exactly. Yeah, the
so-
farther I bring it in, I got
But
useless property in the
to-
back.
Yeah, but here, we have the discretion for the staff to make that choice here.
And the other thing you should be aware of is that your neighbors will be notified that you're doing this.
Sure.
So that could, that gets you into the red and green box of approval or denial if anybody,
Yeah, I
if
see the
anybody
privacy thing,
appeals
but
it.
we can probably do glazed windows or something to make the privacy.
We've seen similar situations in Briggs Ranch before. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Next speaker?
You have no further request to speak on this item.
Anybody else? Come on up. If you could just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Himanshu. I'm a resident of Folsom. I just had a question regarding fire protection. This seems like a fire hazard, having two buildings really close to each other. I know per the new California codes, the new building would have to be fire sprinklered. Would the existing house need to be fire sprinklered as well?
Desmond, could you address that?
Yes, if the existing house is already fire sprinklered, then the ADU will have to be fire sprinklered as well. If the existing house is not required to be fire sprinklered, then the ADU is not required to be fire sprinklered. It does still have to meet all the building and fire code regulations.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. I will entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mayor Aquino, before you make a motion, I just wanted to read into the record a couple corrections in the ordinance. They're all relatively minor, but I will walk you through those so we can get those read into the record. And then my apologies for the errors. So if you go to page, let me get to the right page here. Let's see. If you go to page page 119, sorry about that. I wanted the definition for attached accessory dwelling unit is poorly written, and again, my apologies for that. Instead, it should read as attached, period, an accessory dwelling unit that is created as a result of new construction, which is attached to an existing or proposed primary dwelling, such as through a shared wall, floor, or ceiling, period. An attached dwelling unit can also be constructed within an existing or proposed primary dwelling. So I'll provide that text to the clerk. Then in addition to that, there is a correction that needs to be made on page 121 of your packet. In section 17105.070, and actually it's on 122 toward the top of the page there. It goes from 3 to 5, so number 5 should be actually number 4. And then where it says increased setbacks for structures over 16 feet in height, notwithstanding the standards in subsection 17105.070C, that should actually be 070A. There is no subsection C.
You know, I'm
And
thinking
then,
I'd like to move this to the next meeting so that we can get this stuff corrected. I don't want to do a first reading on something that's got a bunch of errors in it.
There's just 2 more minor typos. So, I mean, obviously that's your, if you wish to put it to the next meeting, that's obviously the council's decision. The other 2 errors are on page 132 of your packet, under section K, subsection 4, that should be a than rather than a that. If any agency or special district others than the city, not that the city. And then the last correction is on the following page, on page 133, and subsection D, 3, it says use of cantilevers. It should be cantilevered, ED, and that's the last of the errors.
I don't think anything is, it doesn't really change any of the content. It's just more.
The distance does on the setback.
Oh, the one that Mike's talking about?
Yeah, maybe Desmond, can you just backtrack to the section that addresses that stepping back with additional height? And let's just take a look at that a little bit so I can, if I make a motion, I can do it accurately.
Sure. So let me get you that correct page number. Hold on just a moment. Okay. So there's actually 2 sections where that is referenced. It's referenced on page 122 at the top there under item, which should be item 4. In the case, if you were to remove this, you would just strike this this paragraph in its entirety.
You're saying item number,
No, you would just, that's right, you would strike my apologies, you would strike the last sentence. If the accessory dwelling unit cannot meet the standards, then for any portion, so you would strike that sentence there. Again, that's on page 122 under what should be section 4.
This is the old 5
And-
on page
oh,
122
okay.
that's
I
now
gotcha.
4, Councilmember
I'm sorry,
Kozlowski.
I was looking at the wrong spot. Okay, so it says currently increased setbacks for structures over 16 feet in height, notwithstanding the setback standards in subsection 17-105-07C, any detached accessory dwelling unit over 16 feet must comply with the design standards set forth in section 17-105-150 and 17-105-160 for accessory dwelling units in the historic district, or section 17-105-150 for an accessory outside the historic district. And then you're saying that the last sentence here, if the accessory dwelling unit cannot meet the design standards, then for any portion of the structure greater than 18 feet in height, an additional setback distance of 1 foot shall be required for each additional half foot of structure height? So you'd strike that last sentence is what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the change would
And
be
then on
to
the-
17.
Oh,
I'm
my
sorry, hold on.
apologies, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so the change would be to 17-105.070, subsection 4.
And then there's one other spot, right?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. So if you go to the top of page 123 under section F,
I see it.
It says there, attached to an existing accessory structure, again, the same language is there at the bottom. That last sentence would be struck if you chose to remove that.
And the F should actually be a C?
Yes, it should.
Or it should be a 5?
Oh my gosh. It should be a C.
It's okay. Well, no. It looks like maybe it should be 5, actually.
It should be a 5. My
Should be a
apologies
5,
for that.
okay,
Yeah,
got
that
it.
should be a 5.
It'd be 5.
Yeah, right, 17-105.080. We are going to get another opportunity to see this because of the second reading. So I think I'm okay with correcting the typos, and I would like to make a motion to approve or accept the first reading, and forward this to approval at a subsequent meeting with the provision that we strike from 17.105.070 subsection 4 the sentence regarding additional height or additional setback related to heights over 18 feet, and similarly strike the same sentence from section 17-105.080 B5.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Ernie, have any questions, comments?
No question?
Okay.
Nope.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Sheldon,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
and Aquino.
Yes. Okay, next item, please.
Okay, your next item this evening is new business item 13. This is presentation of findings and recommendations from the Historic District Parking Solutions Ad Hoc Committee and possible direction to staff. I believe we have Committee Chair Steve Hurd making a presentation tonight with assistance from other committee members. And if you're following along, your PowerPoint presentation begins on page 201.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Mr. Vice Mayor and council members. This is Steve Hurd, Chairman of the Historic District Parking Solutions Ad Hoc Committee. So here is our report. So I think, Krista, you're doing the slide. So the slide on the problem statement. Employees, patrons, and visitors from the commercial portion of the historic district are occupying available on-street parking spaces in the adjacent residential areas at all times of the day and night. This results in constrained parking options for residents, along with many associated nuisance factors, which adversely affect adversely impact residential quality of life. Different areas of the district experience different and sometimes greater impacts depending on their proximity to Sutter Street or even the time of day or other factors. The committee was formed, next slide please, the committee was formed in March 2019 by council resolution, consisted of 11 members, including residents and merchants from the historic district and then folks from outside of the district such as myself, and formed to explore the possible solutions to alleviate traffic and parking concerns in the residential and commercial portions of the historic district. Next slide. So the key issues that we looked at, the impacts to residential area quality of life, and that includes the inability for residents to find parking in front of or close to their homes, occasional trash left behind, and noise from patrons either coming or going in the evening. We looked at the access to parking for historic district patrons, and is there enough, and if there is, are they aware of it, and do we have it for the future? Then we looked at employee and commuter access parking and the underutilized parking capacity. And that could be, anything from lack of awareness to unwilling to walk 3 blocks when there's a parking spot up the street or safety concerns. We looked at a lack of dedicated parking enforcement, and that could anywhere from not enforcing parking time limits in the commercial section to residents putting up cones in front of their homes to, in effect, push the problem down the block. And then, of course, special event parking impacts back when we used to have special events. And then immediate and future growth and parking demands. So those are the things that we looked at. Next slide, please. So the committee recommends a portfolio approach, first to implement a comprehensive solution package, then to enact these solutions in a timely manner, and then moving forward to monitor, report, and improve on those solutions as needed. So we had a lot of input, a lot of public comments. We had some spirited debates among the, let's call them discussions among the committee members. And we had things ranging from a moratorium on all building to putting parking meters and permit parking only in the historic district. So the committee got together and voted on what we felt were the most viable and reasonable solutions, and we put them into several categories. We have the short-term high priority, things that we could do quickly but would have a high impact, short-term with a lower priority, long-term high priority, long-term low, and then ongoing and existing solutions that we should be monitoring and improving as needed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Brankwitz, who's going to talk to you about the next, the priorities.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Shannon Brankwitz. I'm a resident of the Historic District and a representative of HEFRA, the Historic Folsom Residents Association. I want to thank you for putting the committee together and for hearing our concerns and solutions. I'm going to present the short-term high-priority committee recommendations, no particular order. So let's start with establishing designated loading zones for ride-sharing and smart RT. We plan to work with the city and staff to determine how existing loading zones could be used for late-night ride-share and smart RT pickup. That does not limit customers and residents from using ride-share apps such as Uber and so on from within the district. We'd like to design, implement, and enforce a residential parking permit program. The overflow parking from the commercial district into the residential area has had a really negative impact on many of people's quality of life, ranging from early in the morning till 2:30 2:30 the next morning, I should say, or 2:30 at night. We were thinking that the parking permit program would be introduced into the areas most affected, which is along the Figueroa Street, specifically the 600 and 700 blocks. Some suggestions were that residents could obtain 2 free parking permits per house by showing proof of residency and could purchase more for an affordable sum. We also had a lot of details in the report, which you can probably refer back to regarding churches and so on. The next one is establish an in lieu fee for parking. When variances on parking are given, the person or company developing the property would pay the amount that it would cost to install the required parking spaces into a fund that could be used in the future for a future parking garage. And then enhance pedestrian safety to and from the railroad block garage. This would include things like better lighting, more foot traffic, possible security. And then go ahead to the next slide, please. Improve and expand wayfinding signage to encourage use of the parking garage. That's pretty kind of self-explanatory. So I'm not going to cover too much on that. Increase frequency and scope of parking enforcement. And this is where we were talking about enforcing. One of the things is the permit parking, and that'll only work in the residential area if it is enforced. We're asking the city for a dedicated parking enforcement position to enhance the current parking program. This person could enforce parking permits as well as parking limits in the garage, time limits in the garage. They could also enforce parking violations that block right-of-ways and ensure access to residents for first responders and public safety. With the creation of a special district for parking, this is where the revenues from parking permits, tickets, and other things could be designated for the exclusive creation of a parking structure to alleviate the ongoing and increasing parking problems. As the historic district approaches build-out, there will be a deficit of 522 parking spaces. And that was done, I found that in a study by Kimley and Horn, October 2018. So 522 spaces deficit is going to need some really hardcore approach. So we were looking at solutions on a short-term and a long-term. So, sorry, I'm not really good at this. Again, I want to thank you for your time and consideration. I'll be here if you have any questions. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the next part to Karen.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for forming this committee and taking the issues that are happening down here in this historic district seriously. We really love this place, and it's nice to know that we're backed up, so that part is nice. So when we start talking about short-term, low priority issues, providing shuttle options to the parking garage and light rail, it is true that we are having some trouble getting folks to realize that it is a short 3 blocks from one end of the district to the other. But I think having, the group thought that having some sort of shuttles could be very effective and useful. And perhaps this might only be for a short period of time, because as we get people more in tune to that, gosh, it was only 3 blocks up to the end of the street, or I only had to go a block and a half. We are creating a little urban oasis down here, and in any urban environment, there's always a little walking that has to happen when you park and need to get to your destination. So that was something that we thought, and something like that, some kind of shuttle option, something fun like what Murray has done at Powerhouse Pub with that little Sutter Street Surfer, or pedicabs. It don't have to be some formal bus thing, but something that we can get people all around the district would be great.
Karen, did you guys discuss this with Murray?
Sorry?
Did you discuss this with Murray about maybe getting the merchants and possibly the city, depending upon our finances, to cooperate with Murray and Powerhouse about maintaining that the shuttle thing that he was doing last summer? Because I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I think everybody is absolutely enamored with that little Sutter Street surfer. It has just hit a home run. But I think what I struggle with, and I worry about asking Murray for too many favors, kind of, is that everybody thinks it's so cool and, oh, let's use it, oh, let's use it. And what people don't realize, and I'm not saying you, the council, but the public, is that that's being funded by Murray. And it's a privately funded little vessel. So if we had something, yes, maybe we should talk to Murray about how can we make that, you know, a group effort. But, yeah, something along that line would be great.
Okay, thanks.
And then educating employees about parking options. I think that's something that is actually well underway. I think we will never be able to stop with that. I think we have to, from our historic district angle, continue to talk to merchants and let them, encourage them to talk to their employees about parking, where they should park, where they shouldn't park, recognizing that we want to save parking on the streets or very close up for our guests and visitors. So I think that's something that the historic district merchants are working pretty well on. In the next slide, please. Long-term high priority issues. Offer behavioral incentives to reward beneficial parking behavior. From my angle anyway, I see that as a something we may have to enact just for a short time to get people to understand, really get them to move around. We do have the opinion, I think, that once Scott really gets underway, that there's going to be a lot more activity and it's going to be a lot more active down here in the plaza and the parking garage, and that will probably really help us. But trying to find some incentives to get folks to park in the garage and then move up into the district. And of course, the last issue, and this is the whomper, is to build an additional parking garage. And I think there were a lot of ideas about where an additional parking garage could go, but it was our understanding as a committee that we should suggest it but not determine its location, or, you know, only to say that maybe this is something hopefully that we can start really saving up for and creating a long-term plan for. There were lots of ideas as far as where a parking garage might go. I think the eastern end of the historic district is in desperate need of some additional parking spaces. The Trader Lane lot comes up a lot. My concern with the Trader Lane lot is that we create a very, very tight community within, or building within the historic district, and everything just gets tighter and tighter. That lot that's on the Liedersdorf Hill, so to speak, going down toward Lake Natoma, would be a good place to put a parking garage, and we could put it at street level and go down instead of up. That's a good idea. The Cindy Baker lot has come up, so there's lots of options, but I think that's for the council to decide where that might go and how it would work.
Karen, are you
That's the end of my part of the presentation. Yeah, go ahead.
Karen, are you aware that there was a study done, I don't remember how long ago, but all of the potential options are included in that study? Did staff share that with you?
Yes, we talked a lot about that. And, you know, we talked a lot about what the pros and cons were. We really talked about each of the locations and what, you know, it would take realistically to do something like that. Some of them just ended up being too small or too expensive for really paying off as far as the benefit with extra parking spots. But we did talk a lot about that. The one that we thought was really going to be a benefit, that one that was off of Liedersdorf and going down into what I would call the Lake Natoma Hill, was a great option. It was a lot of parking spaces, but it is the most expensive one.
Yeah, that's probably a $40 million project.
The other. Well, the study only said 10, so.
The study was done a while
yeah.
ago, but you need to keep in mind that the
Yeah.
existing parking structure, 10 years ago we finished it, that was $12 million, so the price is not going to go down.
Right. Right, I get that. So I know that building a parking structure is a very pricey thing to think about doing, but I don't know that there are other options. It seems like it's an inevitable long-term need. So if there are more questions, great. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jim Snook.
Yep, we're going to hold the rest of our questions till the end. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Council. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Jim Snook. We own a business down there on the corner. We're going to talk about long-term low priority. So one of the things was establishing valet, and we've tried this at certain events and things in the past. One of the challenges on the 600 block side, which is towards the steakhouse, is there really isn't anywhere to park the cars. But down on Scott's end, and actually we've gotten word that Scott's, I believe they are going to instigate some valet parking. And they've got the space because in the evenings, they've got the 2 light rail lots that open up, and of course they've got the parking garage. I'm not sure how they work that out, but that's good news if they get that going, because that'll be a great way to keep cars, out of the way and improve that. Overall, improve the circulation design for the access to the district. There's a lot of talk about that. There's implementation considerations all about that, because things like not allowing left turns onto Sutter Street off Riley. I think at one point in time that was not allowed, and then they opened it back up. But, anything turning onto Sutter Street off Riley can be a problem with traffic, because, making a left turn stops the traffic, especially coming down the hill towards from Lemby Park side coming down through. But, and then the other thing was consider using some of the undeveloped or underdeveloped lots for infill parking. Like Cindy Baker's lot across from Karen, that actually was used, I believe, like during Amgen, but things like that. And I know obviously there's considerations for implementing and cost, insurance and things like that. And let's see, that's it on that. Going to the next slide, page 212. The committee talked about a parking benefit district, which Shannon kind of touched on, where we could create the area that we want to have funding go back to the district. Right now, like if we had increased enforcement, certain times you get a ticket, we send a check down to San Francisco, because I've gotten a ticket before, which I was happy to pay because I shouldn't have been parked there too long. And then the permit program, that would potentially be more towards the residential side, with those hot spots all along Letus or Figueroa. And then looking into grant funding for parking improvements, that's something that would be an ongoing thing for us, going back into the parking benefit district. And of course, we don't have a lot of enforcement right now, and I know that takes cost. So all these things are things that are just going to be ongoing discussions we need to have and figure out how we can implement some of them. One of the other suggestions was additional fees on downtown purchases, like maybe there's a small fee when anybody buys something down there, and it is returned to the district for the parking, specifically hotel stays and development that comes in. Maybe there's some kind of fee attached for future parking, aside from like the in lieu fee that Shannon talked about. There was also talk about parking meters. Of course, there's some definitely disagreement on parking meters, whether you would want to do that or not. And that would take obviously some investigating to see maybe what other cities have done and what's been successful. So I think that's all I have. Oh, there's funding.
It's not on the next slide here. I'm just scrolling down. There's no slide on funding, but obviously the funding would take a broad approach and continued ongoing efforts. But the committee definitely realizes we need to start now and create funding mechanisms, right now, so we can look forward to the goal of a future parking structure. And so that would be it.
Okay.
So that's it for me.
Can I add a comment just to clarify something?
Yes.
Okay. When we talk about short-term and long-term recommendations, it was determined by the committee that short-term recommendations were anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to implementation. Long-term, the recommendations were anywhere from 5 years to 10 years before implementation. So I just felt like that timeline was important to state. That's it.
Thank you. Mike,
Thank
any
you.
questions for the committee?
So thank you very much, council members. So that's our presentation. I want to thank you for allowing us to convene this very important committee. And thanks to the members, we had 3 members who have businesses in the district. There were Karen Holmes, Jim Snook, and Mary Weaver. We had residents, Shannon Brankwitz, Paul Keese, and Cindy Ferris as historic district residents. Business owner not affiliated was Charles Knuth. I think I'm saying that right. Historic district resident not affiliated with any of those organizations was Phil Rotherham. Folsom resident outside the district was Kyle Middleton. And then Folsom business owner outside the historic district, Steve Hurd with EXP Realty. And then we have professional planner who brought invaluable expertise, and that was Kenton Ashworth. And so now,
Okay.
back to you.
Thank you. Steve, hold tight. We may have some questions for you guys. Mike, you have any questions for the committee?
Aside from maybe the time frame of the long-term solutions needing to be stretched a little bit, I think the result here is outstanding. And I really I want to thank everybody that was involved in this committee because, to the last of them, they're dedicated volunteers here in town who are champions of our historic district and business here in town. And I couldn't be happier with the sort of exercise of, parsing out what the solutions can and should be for resolving the parking issue down there. So I'd just say thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ernie, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have some things to say about it. Unfortunately, I attended a beginning meeting and I was put out of action. I think the staff report is well done. I think it's structured. I think it puts on paper what we've been complaining about in my 11 years on the council, about we need to do something. Well, now we have a piece of paper that spells out options and what we need to do. Now it's up to this council and the city staff to do it, plus it requires some help from the homeowners and some help from the commercial aspect of Old Town. And the city's not going to be in a position for a while to try to pay, say, a $20 million loan to put that structure up to the second one. But without it, we're not going to solve the long range, And as long as the HDC hands out variances for parking like you do candy on Halloween, it's not going to improve anything. It's going to make it worse. So I think I commend Steve and the group for doing a very good job and the consultant. And I think we have now something that we just can't let get dusted by sitting on somebody's table. And now people are going to have to compromise. Sure, businesses, people hate parking meters. My son can't stand them. Every time I mention a parking meter, he goes berserk. because he was down in the LA area and the parking meters basically don't work down there. But we're going to have to make concessions in different places and try things. Maybe try a parking permit, see if it works. The problem we have with a parking permit on one street, say Figueroa, but they need it. The people that park on Figueroa will be parking next door on the other one, just right up the road. So I don't know. But I think it's well done. I think the time they spent, I thank them for it because it was a long year. But it's like in the track meet, you get the 50 meters, but you're running a 200 meter. And you got to keep it going, otherwise you don't win. So I'm more months in the council, but I hope to be around and have an input. But we got to raise the money to do the thing. The city cannot just come up and tax somewhere and make it happen. So I commend the group. As you know, I was very vocal on getting that started. And I thank my colleagues for supporting and the mayor at the time was Kerry, and supporting getting it done. I could get it done 10 years before. And so thank you. And I'm looking forward to better and better times.
Thank you, Ernie. Any more questions or comments, Carrie?
Nope, thanks to the committee.
Okay, Elaine, one thing that I would be interested in seeing, and I know things are a little bit skewed right now because of COVID and people not going out as much, but I know we have the capability now of looking at the usage of the parking garage, how many spaces are used on a daily basis, hourly basis, that sort of thing. So before or when we start to really get into the meat of this, I would be interested in seeing that data.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
we do. That's been actually kind of a fascinating thing to follow if you look at those signs that we posted in the historic district, but we can provide that data, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mr. Hurd, please extend our thanks to your entire committee for a job well done.
Thank you so much. And I would also like to thank the city staff who put in all those hours and presentations, including Dave Nugent, Pam Johns, Mark Rackavan, and I am forgetting one other person, and please forgive me, as well as Nora DeCure, who kind of kept us from killing each other. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Your next item this evening is old business item number 14, filling council vacancy by appointment and/or direction to staff. Presenting tonight will be City Attorney Stephen Wong.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in here real quick, Mr. Wong. We have come to the main event, the item that almost everybody here, I think, is waiting for. So let me explain a little bit about how this is going to work. Mr. Wong, our city attorney, is going to make a short presentation to the council. Then the council will have an opportunity to ask questions of him, if we have any. Then the applicants are going to be invited to address the council. And it makes no difference to us whether you are here in the chambers, on the phone, or I know some folks are not able to speak because they are on vacation or whatever and don't have self-coverage, and that is okay also. Then any member of the public wishing to speak will be given an opportunity, and then the council will deliberate and vote. And as we had said, the applicants will be invited to address the council. We did say that you would each be given 5 minutes, but we need to do some basic math here. We started with 39 applicants, we're down to 38. But 38 applicants at 5 minutes each equals 3 hours and 10 minutes of commentary. So please be assured that we have read all the applications, the resumes, the letters of interest, all that sort of stuff. We're very familiar with the applicants. So if you want to just get up and introduce yourself and tell us some highlights, that would be appreciated. Brevity is a good quality to have in a council member. And I'm going to quote my father, who held office for 22 years, who said all politicians need to know the 3 B's. Be brief, be sincere, and be seated. So with that, Mr. Wong, we'll let you do your presentation.
I will take your cue, Madam Mayor, and I will be very brief. Good evening, Madam Mayor and the members of the City Council. Stephen Wong, City Attorney. Per Council's direction on June 15th to solicit applications from the public to fill a vacancy on the Council, the City has advertised on multiple platforms, to ensure widespread publicity and notice. As the mayor indicated, the city received 39 applications for council consideration, 38 right now. This is a strong showing of our vibrant community, where instead of apathy, we have citizens from all walks of life stepping up, wanting to serve our city. But for the benefit of the public, the person the council appoints to fill the vacancy will hold the office until a new council member is elected at the November 2020 general municipal election. The person appointed must be eligible to hold the seat on the city council, which means that person must be a registered voter, reside in the city of Folsom, and not hold any other city office or city employment. So with that, the city council may now discuss or interview the applicants, and I am available to answer any questions you may have. Hopefully that is brief.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wong? No questions from Mike. Ernie, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Carrie, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, then we're going to let the clerk go ahead. She's going to call the names alphabetically. Go ahead, Krista.
Okay, so I'm going to call the name of the speaker, and then I'm also going to mention who's speaking next. So when you hear your name that you're next, you can be ready. So our first speaker this evening is Kenton Ashworth.
Hi, Council. This is Ken Ashworth. Be brief, be precise, and be gone is what I remember. And basically, I would just like to thank you for the opportunity. I was one of the members of the Historic Parking Committee. I was CAPS for 7 years until my work took me away from being able to stay in CAPS. And I would just like to bring my background and knowledge and experience from being on military installations in a senior leader position that were like little cities, and just helping the city and the residents, the city manager, and the council members. So becoming a part of this Folsom City Council would be priceless. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jaya Badiga, and Jaya will be followed by Robert Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and good evening to City Council members. I do intend to be brief, and my speech is not going to consist so much of my application or why I should be your candidate, but what I would like the council to consider is that the seat that's being filled is one vacated by Roger Gaylord, who, if I can say, was a disruptor at the very least. And so when you are considering candidates, I want you to consider someone who may bring the same opportunity for dialogue, for dissent, someone who may bring the same opportunity to involve people that were never involved in City Council before, someone who has the same opportunity to reach out to people online or through social media, maybe not with the same fervor as Roger did, but at least to have that access. And I will take the rest of my time really briefly to comment on several worthy candidates, not that the ones that I don't know are not worthy, but I wanted to bring out and highlight these people specifically. Muriel, for those who know her, continues to be a force. Steve Hurd, you've heard from him, and he is a respected member in our community and is an active online commentator. Larisha Johnson, welcome to Folsom, and thank you for being the activist that you are, and thank you for your voice. Jennifer Lane, for your continued activism for the waterfront property and area. Jason Ramos, who I've had the pleasure of volunteering with at Folsom Prep, and I think is an exceptional candidate. Brian Wallace, who's done an immense amount of work for the city and continues to do so. And I also want to mention really quick YK and Justin and Mark Moore as candidates, and Rosario as well, who's not on this list, but is a candidate in November. I think our city has an amazing number of talented people that you have the field to consider. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Robert Bailey, and Robert will be followed by Scott Bailey.
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Robert Bailey. I'm a lifetime member of the City of Folsom. I was born here. My parents graduated from Folsom High. I graduated from Folsom High in 1967. Served 3 years in the Army. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I worked for 32 years with the city of Folsom. I understand how the government works. I represented the city of Folsom, Galt, and Isleton on the Sacramento Environmental Commission from 2006 to 2015. I think my expertise in that area is needed right at this time. I taught for 12 years in a business and management course at university, and I'm currently the commander of the VFW in Folsom. I think my knowledge and expertise and common sense would be what the council needs right now. I do not plan on running for city council in November. I think anybody that's appointed that is running would not probably be appropriate. You need to have the freedom to let those people run for office and not have any see them any different than anyone else. I look forward to the appointment and working with the city council and staff in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next will be Scott Bailey, and Scott will be followed by Janine Bedley.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and city staff. Last week, Council Member Kozlowski reminded us that Folsom never suffers from a lack of talent. Tonight's process is proving that to be a pleasant understatement. As you know, I was one of the 11 candidates that didn't win the last city council election. I was very pleased with the outcome of the race and the choices made by the voters. Since then, I've been impressed and very happy with the performance of this council. You have fulfilled my two campaign slogans of let's keep it going and let's make Folsom even better. Thank you for that. Moving forward, I applaud you for making a truly democratic decision to appoint a fifth council member. I understand you had the option of leaving it vacant, but the citizens deserve to have additional viewpoints from experienced Folsom residents, as well as an odd number of council votes to avoid ties. There were thoughts and desires put forth that this temporary appointment should be a person that is not running for council in the November election and is not somebody currently serving on a city commission or committee. I agree, as this would cause a climate of an unfair advantage to a council candidate and a conflict of interest that arguably would lead to recusals on issues originating from an affected committee or commission. Last Tuesday morning, my phone started lighting up. Many Folsom citizens and other community leaders, some well known to this council, began calling me and urging me to toss my name into the hat. I realized I fit the job description. I have no agenda, no baggage, and a solid understanding of the city council's operations. As you know, I spent 35 years as a volunteer to the city of Folsom, serving and protecting the citizens in uniform. The last 5 years were spent as a bailiff to the council meetings. This allowed me a rather unique position to observe and learn how the council is run and the vast duties an engaged council person must face. I feel I'm familiar with all the city departments, the city staff, and the role of a council member. I'm up to speed with the issues facing Folsom. My time in uniform taught me the skill of dealing with all kinds of people and all sorts of challenging circumstances. One of my famous sayings is, there is always at least two sides to every story. I was trained to look at all situations with objectivity, seek the real facts, and react according to policy and the law. These are skills I know I can bring to the seat on the council. I've lived in Folsom since 1986 with my wife, Lynn, and I have been married for 37 years. We raised 3 children and have truly enjoyed the 95630 experience. I owned a Folsom business for 8 years, was involved in Folsom youth soccer, youth basketball, Little League, Sea Otters, church groups, park construction projects, library remodel projects, water hyacinth eradication projects, and 13 years as a roadie equipment guy for the Folsom Music Boosters. More recently, a Folsom Rotarian. I was a devoted scout leader for 22 years, proudly earning 3 Eagle Mentor pins and 3 fine young Eagle Scouts. Tonight, you have an amazing pool of talented candidates, including at least one obvious choice in my friend Andy Morin. If you should decide tonight that I am the right fit for the seat, I promise to serve the citizens of Folsom to the best of my ability, behave honorably, treat every citizen with respect, honor the Constitution and the city charter, and make all decisions based on objectivity and due diligence. I appreciate your consideration and your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And before we move on, I just want a quick reminder to everybody on the call to be sure to mute your phone unless you are actively speaking. It just helps cut down on the noise interference. So thank you. Next will be Janine Bedley, and Janine will be followed by Nick Butler.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Janine Bedley, and I'm here today to earn your vote for the vacant City Council seat. I live in Folsom, and I work in Folsom, just right across the street. So every time that bell goes off on the hour, I'm reminded it's time to get to work, to get in that seat, to represent the people of Folsom. I will bring transparency to the City of Folsom, and transparency is a big topic that we need to talk about on the city level, on the state level, and on the federal level, and the worldwide level. So we really need to focus on transparency. That's a big topic that everyone's very concerned about, and I will bring transparency to the City Council. I will be looking at facts when making decisions. Tonight was a perfect night to come up here. It was just amazing. Earlier this year, I've been attending the meetings with the ADU. We've had several meetings with several members of the Folsom community talking about the historic district. Earlier tonight, there was a gentleman talking about him building his own ADU. Something that I really like doing is I like having my feet on the ground when I'm looking at an issue. So recently I was looking at the parking in historic Folsom. We have to really look at the times of day. So for example, Saturdays are really busy days where some of our parking lots are extremely full, and there's just not a lot of openings. So something I did a couple of weeks ago is I went down to historic Folsom and I talked to people. So I had all the kids draw their hands. Sometimes their moms were helping them draw their hands. So really representing the children here in Folsom. Folsom is a family-friendly town. I'm a grassroots type person where I love to walk the neighborhoods, talk to my neighbors, go to the parks, talk to the people at the parks. It was just a joy a couple weekends ago to see kids swinging on the swings and playing on the playgrounds. It was just so awesome to see. And so I encouraged all the adults to write whatever was on their mind. So we have several things that the adults were writing too. So I am an advocate for the people. In high school, I had the opportunity to work on a re-elect Governor Pete Wilson campaign, which spurred my interest in politics. And that summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I worked for Assemblyman Kuykendall. He's from Long Beach. And the assembly floor was talking about prison overcrowded. And I love problem solving. So what I did is I researched the issue. I talked to different departments with corrections. I talked to different departments in Florida, in Texas, in New York, in California. And I came up with an idea followed by the model in Florida. And I created legislation with the help of numerous staff members, numerous legislators, worked with Ledge Council, introduced legislation that became law when I was in college. So it was really exciting. I'm someone that loves to problem solve and work with numerous people to find the best solution. I went to Penn State, majored in political science, and I was watching on the news where we were having the rolling grayouts. So I'm like, time to come back home. So I came back home and I'm like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a lobbyist. And so I found this opening for the California Federation of Republican Women. And I am extremely passionate when it comes to politics. I love people, I like making a difference, and I love problem solving. So I went to the Capitol every day, went to basically every single committee hearing you can think of. My passion, I want to work with the school board members and the teachers and the parents because Folsom is a family-friendly town. I know the city council doesn't have a lot to do with education. However, I want to bring people to the table to have conversations. That's what the people here in Folsom want. I also have over 17 years of experience working in corporate America. So I have the blend of both having government understanding and a passion for the law. I used to work for a lawyer when I was in junior high school who's still a very good friend. And I thought about going to law school too. So I understand how the city council also makes various legislative decisions that can be changed in future years, but how the decisions that you make are actually on the books. And I have a lot of respect for each and every one of you with doing that. And with working in business for over 17 years in corporate America, I have led grassroots problem-solving projects that have saved time and money. So time is of the essence, money is of the essence. Right now, we're going through a major health crisis. So we need to take that on, head on, working with the Sac County and working with the state and working with the federal government. This is the topic that we really need to address, is the health topic and also the economic topic. So when we're talking about parking in a historic district, we can look at different ways to bring revenue to the city. And I definitely thank you for your time.
I got to cut you off. Yes, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Nick Butler, and Nick will be followed by YK Chalam-Cherla.
We need to take that on, head on, with the Sac County.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, for this opportunity to speak. Representation is the first step to inclusion. I spent 12 years working in academia and have had plenty of opportunity to make sure inclusion was a big part of what I do. I worked at a lab that was staffed primarily by men at the university and made it an initiative to make sure there were women on our staff. This had a significant impact on the student body that came into our space. I tell you this story because I believe that getting firsthand opportunity to work with the City of Folsom government will serve as a symbolic bridge for students of color who also plan to explore and get experience working in government. We've all seen the news filled with protests, the evolving civil rights landscape, and the emergence of stories of Black history that was left out of the school books. We've had multiple peaceful protests here in Folsom, coordinated by community members who would also serve very well on this council. I have been searching for my place in this moment as a father, as an artist, and as a citizen. As a father, I teach my kids to be gentle, kind, and compassionate. As an artist, I use my art to convey what I feel in a visual way. And as a citizen, I feel it's my duty to engage where I can. For many, engagement is protest. But my place in life, I find comfort in process and procedure. I know, exciting, isn't it? This opportunity to serve temporarily on the City Council can be an opportunity for the City of Folsom to show the Black community that they are heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next will be YK Chalam-Cherla, and YK will be followed by Barry Christian. YK, are you with us tonight?
Members of the council. Yes. Good evening. My name is YK Chalam-Cherla, address 1755 Abbeyfield Court. I've been living in Folsom over 12 years with my beautiful wife and 2 daughters. Older daughter recently graduated from Cal Poly, and my younger one is in Vista Del Lago, senior. Some of you may recognize my name. I previously ran the 2018 Folsom City Council elections, gained close to 7,400 votes, and stood as a second runner-up and the first runner-up. So my name is out there. A bit about me. You probably might have read my bio. I have a degree in computer science engineering. I'm a technologist. 5 years of leadership experience in government administration. Learned through these times how to run effective and efficient government with a fiscal responsibility. And I want to say a little bit about my community level. I was the Parks and Rec Commissioner for 2 years, from 2016 to 2018. cultural commissioner. Even at county level, I'm the board of director for American River Parkway. And I'm also involved in our local community nonprofits, such as Homeless Assistance Resource. Our focus is how to uplift the, and another important one where I focus is kids. I have been a parent-teacher organization board member for over a decade in my kids' school, starting from their elementary, where they learn the ABCs, start all the way to middle, investing in youth, because they are our future. And not least, they will do in September the big one. I've been an active volunteer, part of that board in executing the organizations. I'm passionate about my community, as you heard all the other things. I love Folsom. I'm running again in 2020 elections. I want to make that clear here because I want to make sure I'm not hiding anything. You guys can find me about, who is YK elect. But more importantly, the points I want to bring, this city council and we all care about how our communities are. Safety, is it sustainable? Is our schools are driving towards job-oriented education? Are we attracting high-paying jobs? Most of the points I'm making, I learned from 18 elections campaign, talking to the residents. And the great point is, this city council, the government, which is running right now, they're all highly prioritizing these areas of public safety, infrastructure, towards the job-oriented education, and bringing high-paying jobs from Bay Area. And I want to conclude why I am a fit for this appointment. Why? Some of you know, especially the city staff, I have been attending most of the city council meetings for the last several years. City staff can attest to that. I know what's going on in this chamber. I understand the policies we are making, the issues this chamber is discussing, and this will be, for me, a quick ramp-up time because keeping this 5-month window of city council member being effective, there is no learning curve here. I can add a great value to the current city council with the best interest of our city. I know there is a great group of candidates applied for this position. It makes me happy to see so many people wants to step up and serve our community. I feel proud about that. You have learned about me, my engagement for the last 12 years.
Thank you, YK.
Moved to Folsom.
Thank you, YK.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I really hope you support my candidacy.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Barry Christian, and Barry will be followed by Daniel Clark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members, for the opportunity. This is Barry Christian, and to be very brief, everything relevant was in my written application. I'm very happy for the city of Folsom to see that you have a list of very good and qualified candidates, and I thank you for consideration of my application.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker will be Daniel Clark. And I just want to note the next list of applicants would be Jem Dendolk, but he is out of reach for a cell phone tonight. So after Daniel Clark will be Muriel Brownstein-Dooley. Go ahead, Daniel. Daniel, are you with us? You might be muted. Okay, it doesn't sound like Daniel is here, so we're going to go ahead and move on to Muriel Braunstein-Dooley, who will be followed by Robert Gary.
Good evening, Mayor Aquino and council members. I go by Muriel Braunstein. I've been encouraged to run for this vacant city council seat because of my activism in our community. I'm applying because I believe that there are issues that need to be addressed in Folsom. I've lived in Folsom for 29 years and have been a part of the community in a variety of ways. I was appointed to chair the Governmental Operations Committee by Mayor Bob Holderness. I've served on the Lighting and Landscape District Board. I've participated in Leadership Folsom. I've been a 32-year Kiwanian and served as the president of the Folsom Kiwanis Club. I've also served on various school district task forces and committees over the years. In the county, I participated in the Sacramento County Citizens Academy, and I served on the 2014-15 county grand jury. I've also been a volunteer mediator with the Senior Legal Hotline, where I utilize my skills to listen to all sides of an issue. My husband and I own Dooley Tax and Financial Services and were active in the Folsom Chamber of Commerce when our business was located here. We're retired now. My education includes a bachelor's degree in Spanish, a master's in counseling, and a Juris Doctorate degree in law, where I was president of the Student Bar Association. As all of you on the council know, there are two causes that I am passionate about in Folsom. One is the issue of homelessness, and the other is by district elections. About a year and a half ago, I started an informal group of concerned Folsom citizens to study the issue of homelessness in Folsom. The group grew to about 150 people on our mailing list, and we had a packed room when former Mayor Howell spoke to our group. We have put together a presentation which we are ready to give to the City Council. Unfortunately, City Council meetings have not been open to the public because of the current health crisis. However, for the safety of Folsom's homeless population, 80% of whom, according to the Folsom Police Department, were formerly housed in Folsom, we wrote a letter recommending that certain immediate steps, including porta potties with hand washing facilities, trash removal, and the provision of hand sanitizer, be provided. The council has yet to respond. There are two issues concerning Folsom's homeless population. Safety for Folsom's homeowners, especially those whose homes are near the homeless camps, and housing and services for the homeless. In our report, we will present several options with proposed costs to the city: sanctioned parking sites, sanctioned monitored campground, a day service and resource center, a shelter facility, tiny homes and/or sleeping cabins, and motel rooms. Our committee believes that providing services for our city's homeless population will make our city safer and a better place to live for all our citizens. As you know, my other passion has been for the city of Folsom to make the change from at-large city council elections to by-district elections. The city of Folsom is racially and ethnically diverse. Unfortunately, the city's diversity is not reflected in the current city council, nor has it been reflected in prior city councils. Many California cities, including Citrus Heights, Lincoln, Roseville, Davis, and Elk Grove, have gone to district-based elections in furtherance of the state's commitment to upholding voting rights for minority voters, protected by the California Voting Rights Act, which prohibits at-large election systems from impairing the ability of minority groups to elect candidates of their choice. By-district elections ensure that voters have one representative who is specifically accountable to the voters and neighborhoods that elected him or her. I believe that we will ultimately be successful in having Folsom change from at-large elections to by-district elections. I hope that the council will make this decision on its own. Here are about 350 signatures that we got just to, in a way, to educate the members of in the town. I'm proud to live in Folsom, but there are issues that I'm concerned about, including traffic congestion due to growth, a shortage of water due to south of 50 construction, housing insecurity and affordable housing, the needs of the business community, including job creation, and infrastructure needs such as roads and city services. I care about Folsom, and I want this already great city to be a great place to live for all its citizens. I'm trying to do my share and see that all of our citizens are represented and provided the services they need. I would be that voice on the Folsom City Council. I hope that you will consider giving me that opportunity. Thank you. I believe in the audience are some people who are in support of the homeless issue and supported by district. So some of you are out there. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Robert Gary, and Robert will be followed by Deborah Grassel.
Hi, good evening. My name is Robert Gary. You guys have a long evening, so I'll be brief. I've lived in Folsom for 20 years. I've raised 2 kids in this town. Both started off in our public preschool system, graduated in our high schools here, and today both are engineers and successful young adults. I think that speaks a lot to how amazing this town is and how it can nurture growing families. Along the way, I volunteered in leadership and coaching positions in many youth activities in town, including Folsom National Little League, our soccer program, FYBA, worked a few fireworks shifts with Ernie, and I've spent many years as an assistant scoutmaster in Troop 94, where I've met several of you during various community service events, charity events, and court of honors. Over the years, Roger Gaylord and I disagreed on a number of issues. We had some lively debates online, but I think that's an amazing part of this town is that we can have that personal action. It's possible, and I would strive to continue that. I think the most important goal for our council is to maintain this amazing quality of life that we enjoy. We have a very unique town thanks to both this council and the councils that preceded it. And over the years, I've seen a number of people run for council on platforms of all kinds of radical change or radical ideas. I'm not sure if they believe that or they found it gathered political attention, but I don't think city council is the place for experimentation. It's not a place to try the latest fads. We have an amazing gem that is truly unique, and I think we need to protect what we have. We owe it to our community to provide the same visionary leadership to future generations that those before us provided to us. I think what makes this town so amazing is the people. We need to continue to support programs such as our Parks and Rec, senior programs, Aquatic Center. Our amazing trails have garnered us national attention. I enjoy riding on them. These resources not only bind us, but define what we are as a town. Over the years, our council's faced a lot of issues I've seen that require bold decision making, and sometimes it's easier to kick the can down the road. And I recognize that decisions are often not easy. But even though it may be the easiest to kick the can down the road, that's not me. I believe in decisive decision making that reflect values of integrity and transparency. So you guys have a long evening. I'll give you the rest of the time back. My name is Robert Gear, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deborah Grassel, and Deborah will be followed by Benjamin Hansen.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Deborah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, great. Thank you so much for hearing me this evening. I'm very impressed with all of the candidates who have come forward already. I think your decision is going to be a really hard one. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I've done in terms of public representation. I started out early as a dancer, and I was picked to be the representative to the National Endowment for the Arts dance touring program, and we accomplished a lot of really great things, as well as won a lot of grant funding from that representation. And then I decided that I would attend San Francisco State University and get my degree in sinology, and I volunteered to be on the San Francisco Shanghai Sister City Committee. And I was promptly recruited to become the secretary of this entity that was a special committee set up by the then Mayor Dianne Feinstein to increase economic growth and help the Bay receive more overseas partners that wanted to do business in the United States and in San Francisco. So I was responsible for chauffeuring around and educating 24 interns in business and acquainting them with our culture on the West Coast. And as a result of that, I was asked by Mayor Dianne Feinstein if I would like to go to China to do the same, representing the city and the county of San Francisco, which I did. I spent 7 months there learning all that I could, and when I came back, I knew a great deal about China and the Pacific Rim countries, and I got involved in Folsom early on with the Historical Society. My mother was manager of the Folsom History Museum, and I became really interested in the local history, not to mention the fact that the local Chinese history was very fascinating to me. When a major developer came into town and wanted to build a very large development in the historic district, I realized that that development would not save a great deal of our cultural history. And I got involved in trying to work with that developer and then work with the city of Folsom. At the same time, I was also working with the city of Folsom with the Parks and Recreation Department. I taught for 13 years for the city of Folsom and the city of Orangevale, the city of Sacramento, and the city of Rancho Cordova. And as I got further and further into the development project, I realized that it needed a lot more time, and I worked with the staff of the city for 4 years to see what we could do about rearranging that development. And I think we did manage to save the Chinese cultural resources. I'd just like to say I would really like to work on the council and work on future planning and planning developments and whatnot. I think that council has done a marvelous job so far, and the staff have done a marvelous job. So I'm going to close now and cede my time to someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Next will be Benjamin Hansen, and Benjamin will be followed by Stephen Hurd.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Benjamin Hansen, and I've lived in Folsom for the past 5 years. Before living here, I was living in San Francisco. And I'm interested in serving as a council member for the city of Folsom because Folsom has a wonderful history, a wonderful reputation globally. It's quite an interesting place. I've lived in other cities in California, San Francisco, San Diego, Fresno, and Chowchilla. And while I've been in Folsom, I've volunteered at the public library as a 3D printing demonstrator and tutor using 3D printers donated by Intel in 2015, 2016. And I've worked at Folsom State Prison as in the records office as a case records technician within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation in 2018. However, currently I work at Joanne, and I'm also beginning studies for a bachelor's in science, in computer science. And I also hold a bachelor's in communication studies from San Francisco State University and a master's in library and information science from San Jose State University. So the current vacancy is attractive to me because I'm interested in government, and I think it would be a great opportunity to learn more about the city and how governance works in the city. And I value social contributions and have a history of volunteering when in different cities or San Francisco. I volunteered with the library as well. And yeah, so I just think it'd be a wonderful opportunity to be a part of the city that I live in. And thank you for your consideration. Be safe in these challenging and interesting times.
Thank you, Benjamin. Okay, next will be Stephen Hurd, and Stephen will be followed by Richard Heiler.
Okay, hello again, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Steve, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I too promise to give you the short version. You've seen my letter and my application. You know, over 30 years ago, I was living in the San Francisco area where I grew up, and I was managing travel for Intel, and they had just opened this campus in Folsom, and I wondered why. You know, all I knew of it was that it was hot and dry, and they had a prison and a lake. And And, over the years, didn't give it much more thought until my brother-in-law moved here about 1989. Again, I wondered why, and for the same reasons. But I started coming up to visit, and it started to grow on me little by little. And, come the year 2000, I had two young girls and my daughters, and needed a place to raise them. I was looking for quality of life, and I started investigating Folsom further and found that it offered what I needed. It was clean, it was safe, had great schools, and as I got to know the people, I realized that it's really it's a small town. It's 75,000 people now, but it has a small town feel, and we get a lot of community involvement. And I've always believed in getting involved in my community, and so we eventually settled here. But still, it was hot and dry and not a lot to do, and I vowed to leave once my kids grew up. So anyway, my daughters are now 27 and 32, and they still haven't grown up, so I'm still here. And, I've been involved volunteering for everything from guarding the bathrooms at Folsom Live to being an arts and cultural commissioner for 10 years. I've come to know the people in city staff and you city council people and countless community members, many of whom have encouraged me to run for office for many years. And, I don't know that I'm ready to make a 4-year commitment, but I do think that I can take this position vacated by Roger and give it the respect and honor that it deserves. I'm not going to try to change the world in 5 months, but I hope to have a positive impact and do you proud. So I appreciate your support and hope that you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Richard Heiler, and Richard will be followed by Larisha Johnson.
Hi, this is Richard Heiler. I'm interested in helping our Folsom community. I was born and raised in Sacramento, and my wife and I raised our 2 children here in Folsom for the last 24 years. I was educated at UC Davis and UC Berkeley, where I earned engineering and business degrees. And I went to the high-tech industry in Silicon Valley for about 8 years. When I graduated with my first degree, I was $100 in debt, had a 16-year-old car. 8 years later, I had a 24-year-old car, a wife, expecting our daughter, and we had more than enough to pay for our first house here in Folsom. As an engineer, product manager, and strategic planner, I brought people together to solve problems, fought the corporate dragons to move proposals forward, and had happy customers. I supported our children's endeavors in school, sports, and scouting. I served 5 years as DIN leader in PAC 94 and 3 years as committee chair in Troop 236. Folsom is blessed with so many wonderful families and children. My wife and I are blessed with wonderful self-driven children who work hard developing themselves. Both are University of Santa Clara graduates. Our daughter just started her career as a nurse in February, and our son will start graduate school at Georgia Institute of Technology and work toward a PhD. For 3 years, I've researched our nation's indebtedness and joined the Convention of States project. I've met with several of our legislators and staff at our state capitol, and I've helped them understand the severity of this problem, the austerity measures coming, just like Greece had, and the legislature's role in changing our federal government's direction. The staff and legislators have responded with access, curiosity, and expressed concern for their children's future. I'm grateful to our police for protecting my neighborhood. They did a wonderful job in the early 2000s gathering evidence to get rid of a neighborhood drug dealer, Roy Larrick. His customers used to park in front of my house, walk to Roy's house, and 20 minutes later drive off. Folsom police were patient, respectful, and ready when opportunity came. They watched out for us, and Roy is gone. The Folsom Fire Department was a big help to Troop 236 parents when we ran a fireworks stand for the first time. We had to do this when we lost our car wash due to the drought. They worked to make it safe, and they were not onerous. They were very helpful. In closing, I am very concerned for our children's future. All levels of government must function responsibly to preserve our individual rights, maintain our infrastructure, and preserve an affordable cost of living. Our local governments are suffering from crushing federal and state mandates, burdening our citizens. We also have crushing federal and state debt and unfunded liabilities that are threatening to burden our cities even more. These burdens will drag our children down if we don't change our course. I'm interested in helping Folsom run effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Larisha Johnson, and Larisha will be followed by Darina Kellum.
Hello, members of the council. Thanks so much for your time this evening. I too will keep this brief. I understand that you already have my letter of intent and qualifications. So again, thank you for the opportunity. The only thing that I would ask the council to consider when you're making your decision is to really consider bringing someone to the council that has diversity in their background. As an African-American woman, I understand the importance of representation. So I think you're at we're all in a really unique place in this time in our national history and in our local history. And bringing someone in the council that bring more diversity to the council, I believe, brings in fresh ideas and new perspectives that helps foster the Folsom that I believe will continue to make it inclusive for all of our residents. So that's something I just wanted to call out and have you think about as you're making your decision. And I wish you best of luck in your decision. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Darina Kellum. Darina will be followed by Jennifer Lane.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Darina Kellum. I'm a proud resident of the city of Folsom, a mother of 2 rambunctious children and a wife. I like to think I'm an ordinary citizen from a working class background wanting to serve this city during extraordinary times. I am a child of immigrants who came to the United States for a better life for their children. I graduated with my Bachelor's of Arts from Long Beach State, Go Beach, and a Master's of Science degree from Columbia University in the city of New York. I serve those who've served our country. I worked at the VA Medical Center at Mayfair Air Force Base for almost 10 years, providing clinical support and advocacy for our veterans. I managed the daily operations of the Spinal Cord Injury Program, supporting veterans who've returned from combat with serious injuries by fighting for their benefits, increasing access and clinical care, as well as collaborating with various veterans service organizations, such as the Paralyzed Veterans Association, to help champion issues affecting veterans. Currently, I work at Kaiser Permanente in Sacramento, providing essential healthcare services to patients on the telemetry, medical, and surgical floors. In the community and in my volunteer work, I am a parent of a kindergartner at Russell Ranch Elementary. Go Mustangs. I help in the classroom. I coordinate with other Folsom parents to ensure our children's educational needs are met, and I participate in activities throughout the academic school year. In the community, I've volunteered my time with the Alzheimer's Association of Northern California and Northern Nevada as a panel speaker for multiple community educational forums, such as the CARE Partner Education Forum, as well as speaking engagements and panel discussions with Congressman Doris Matsui discussing improving healthcare access for people with Alzheimer's. In summary, I'm a passionate resident of Folsom. I want to collaborate with our community. I want to work with small business owners, residents, teachers, parents, veterans, law enforcement who keep our city safe, civil service workers, and our youth. I love this city, our ever-growing diverse community, and I want to promote Folsom as an ideal place to live, raise your children, visit, work, and do business. Ultimately, we are stronger together. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next will be Jennifer Lane, and Jennifer will be followed by Robert Lee.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Aquino, City Council, City Manager Elaine Anderson, and staff. It has been a privilege working with all of you from time to time. Tonight, I would like to mention my mentor of 10 years, Councilman Ernie Sheldon. He has made it possible for me to gain insight in just how the city works.
Being appointed to the Planning Commission has been an honor that I hold close. Being mentored by the best has given me the courage to stand up when integrity calls. Early on, I made myself available to meet with developers. Through this process, I was able to better understand the projects before me. It was and still is imperative to visit the sites in question for review. When residents reach out with a concern, I find it important to reach back to them. That is what community service looks like. This is the way that Councilman Sheldon mentored me. For this, I am grateful to Ernie. I would have never imagined that meeting Ernie so many years ago at a teacher rally, that I would be here tonight with one last chance to put my teachings to use. Thank you, Mr. Ernie, for seeing the devotion that I have for the city of Folsom. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next will be Robert Lee Jr., and Robert Lee will be followed by Robert McNair.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, members of the city staff, and fellow Folsom citizens. My name is Rob Lee, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to address the council with an outline of my interests and qualifications to serve the city by completing Roger Gaylord's term on the council. My interest in the position is simply a desire to make a meaningful contribution to the city and the community in which I live. I've been a resident of Folsom for over 3 years when my wife and I relocated from the Washington, D.C. area to help care for her aging parents. And we both strive to be active and involved in our new city. For the last 2 years, I've been the vice president of our homeowners association, the American River Canyon Cluster Homes. And I'm also vice president of one of the largest Sacramento Valley region car clubs. Last fall, with the assistance of the state headquarters, I formed and have led the first local chapter of the California Rifle and Pistol Association here in Folsom. The California Rifle and Pistol Association is one of the oldest hunting and shooting associations in this state. My wife and I routinely attend city council meetings to be knowledgeable of the important issues concerning our community. And to that end, we both enrolled in this year's Folsom Citizens Academy, which was unfortunately closed because of the COVID-19 emergency. However, I'd like to point out that I am also a graduate of the Sacramento District Attorney Citizens Academy of 2019. Again, my interest was to gain a working knowledge of the interactions of city, county, and state government to be a better informed citizen. I'm also a member of the Folsom chapter of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Now, my involvement in the community is not something that started when I moved to California. During my 20-plus years of working in the Washington, D.C. area, I served on 3 different homeowner association boards. I was an American Red Cross disaster response volunteer for the city of Alexandria. And additionally, my wife and I raised 2 outstanding young men to responsible adulthood. And I was their assistant scoutmaster and Boy Scouts of America Troop 1150 in Alexandria, Virginia for over 10 years. Both of my sons attained the rank of Eagle Scout, so really am no stranger to community involvement. Now, as for my personal qualifications to serve on the City Council, many things in my life for which I'm proud, but the last 10 years of my working career were the most professionally satisfying. I was a member of the Federal Senior Executive Service working on the United States Department of Transportation on the Secretary of Transportation's immediate staff. Job title was the Deputy Director of Office of Intelligence, Security, and Emergency Response for the department. I worked directly for the most senior civil servant in the department, and the Deputy Secretary of Transportation was the next person in my chain of supervision. I was directly responsible for the oversight supervision of the department's use of counter-terrorist intelligence, the Department Operations Center, our transportation disaster response when we had a presidentially declared disaster, our department disaster training, and the Secretary's personal protection detail, along with the department's continuity of government plans and relocation facilities. During that time, I received several awards for superior job performance, 2 of which were awards of the Secretary's Gold Medal, which is the highest award for performance in the department. Additionally, I have a wide range of experience in the private sector, and I spent over 17 years in 3 different professional services corporations, and these companies were concerned mainly with assisting cities and state governments prepare response plans for dealing with major disasters. I held positions ranging from program manager, director, vice president of operations, and finally executive vice president, supervising 5 other vice presidents. Prior to my work in the private sector, I spent 22 years in the United States Army as an infantry officer and an assault helicopter pilot. I spent my last several years in the military in the Pentagon as a member of the Army staff and later on the Secretary of Defense staff for special operations and low-intensity conflict. In closing, I'd like to hope that I have summarized 2 things for you. One, my wide and varied background with the federal government, the private sector, and the military, which I believe qualifies me for this position. And second, an active interest and involvement in the communities in which I live. With my wife, we both stand for family, neighborhood, and good government, and wish to leave you with one clear thought. I can do this job well, and I'd like to have the job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next will be Robert McNair, and Robert will be followed by Mark Menz. Robert McNair, are you with us? You might be muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Let me step out a little bit here. So thank you for having us speak to you guys. I think that's a great idea. I'm a computer engineer and manager. I was at Intel for over 28 years and Marvell for a couple of years. I've lived, worked, gone to school in this area since I was in 6th grade. I've seen this town transform from 6,000 people to over 79,000 that it is today. And let me tell you, it's a heck of a lot of work for the council to really manage this transitions every day. You know, you guys talk about from the, you know, what's your backlot area, mundane issues for how far away the fence should be, to homelessness problems, to how to handle the COVID. So really well done, council. I've been very impressed with the council. So why am I applying? I'm applying here because, you know, I believe after working so long in the private sector, it's my responsibility to use my knowledge, experience, and skills to really serve meaningfully our local government, right? I want to make sure Folsom continues to be, hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can I remind everybody, if you're not actively speaking, to please remember to mute your phone. Go ahead, Robert.
Is this better? Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, I've lived there for over 30 years working at Intel and other private sectors, and I think it's time for me to bring my knowledge, experience, and skills to really help local government. You guys have done a fantastic job, and I'm very interested in continuing to provide the steps you guys have put in place, right? You guys, you know, from responding to the COVID crisis, to homelessness, to safety, to zoning, city budgets, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of stuff to go do. Now, why am I best for this role? One is my experience at Intel. I have a myriad of experience of bringing different groups, stakeholders, diversity together to really solve problems. I'm a very quick study. I learn, dig in, roll up my sleeves, try to really understand the issues and put together the right people and discussions to really understand and solve problems. I'm a problem solver. From community service perspective, I have helped from the tutoring and putting grants together for the local food bank to tutoring kids at school, particularly at high-risk students at school. I also am a local chapter leader for a group called Represent Us, which is really to fix political legalized corruption, which I talked to Sarah about, and I really appreciated her input, and how to really kind of work with the council to come up with some resolutions and how to do that. I worked with Carrie Howell on rezoning and also the water treatment plant issues, so I really appreciate their guidance there as well. My style of leadership, which I would bring to the council, for the round running is really coming up to fast speed on issues and also setting aside any personal views. I like to look at both sides of the argument, both sides of what's happening, look at the pros and cons, and really I'm a very data-driven type of person to make decisions. So I really appreciate the time and I really appreciate the council's time and effort in really finding the right candidate, and I think I'm the right candidate for that job. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Mark Menz, and Mark will be followed by Rick Miller. Mark, are you there? You might be muted still. Last chance, Mark. Okay, we'll move next to Rick Miller, and Rick will be followed by Stephanie Mizuno. Rick, are you on the line? Last chance, Rick Miller. Okay, we're going to move to Stephanie Mizuno, and Stephanie will be followed by Julie Moore. Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me clearly?
We can, Stephanie. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Stephanie Mizuno. I'm here tonight to request your consideration for the vacant seat on the Folsom City Council. I respect for everyone's time. I will keep my statements brief. I've been a resident of Folsom for 19 years. I hold a bachelor's degree in business administration and management and have over 32 years experience in municipal government. Over the past 8 years, I have served as the council clerk operations manager for the Sacramento City Council. I've also served 6 years on a policy committee for the League of California Cities as a presidential appointee. This knowledge and experience have given me an intimate understanding on how to successfully navigate municipal government and the legislative process. I have no political agenda and only bring my experience, integrity, a strong commitment to transparency and open government as my platform. I have no predetermined positions on issues other than to be committed, open-minded, thorough in my consideration, listen to all points of view, and make decisions that attempt to balance the interests of the parties with the fundamental priorities established by this council. My personal desire for serving the city of Folsom is to contribute in a meaningful way that continues to honor the history, quality of life, safety, and economic viability of this exceptional city we live in. I've listened to the statements of the prior applicants, and this pool has a great depth and breadth of experience to select from. A difficult decision is in front of you tonight. I offer that my intentions are straightforward and sincere, and I'm prepared to hit the ground running. In closing, I'd like to thank you for your time and wish you all a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next will be Julie Moore, and Julie will be followed by Mark Moore.
Good evening, and thank you to the City Council members for the opportunity to address the Council. My name is Julie Moore, and I'm applying for the open City Council position. Folsom's an incredibly well-planned city, thanks to the current and past City Councils, the Planning Commission, city managers, etc. I would like to be a part of our city's government, and I know I have something to offer. A little bit about me. My husband and I moved to Folsom 21 years ago. We moved here for our jobs, me as a national account manager for UPS, and him as an HR manager for Intel. After having kids, I left corporate America for something more flexible and started a small business manufacturing and selling promotional items. In 2010, I sold my half of the business to my partner, and our company, Ground Zero Marketing, is still right here in Folsom with both manufacturing and a sales office. For the past 6 years, I've had the pleasure of being the librarian at Carl Stendhal Elementary. and I'm also currently serving the second of 4 years on the city's library commission, and I was elected head of the commission in January. I've been involved in many Folsom organizations over the years, including many of our schools. I was on Vista Del Lago's athletic board for 4 years, serving as the treasurer and financial secretary. I ran the Academic Enrichment Fund at Folsom Hills and its associated finances, and many other organizations. For the past 3 years, I was the volunteer runway coordinator for the Folsom Runway. Starting this event with Folsom's Park and Rec Department and an incredible group of community volunteers has honestly been a true highlight. In 2 short years, the team worked with all levels of city government and with many champions at the city. A recreational therapist position was added. It was amazing to see everyone work together to make it possible for kids of all abilities to participate in the Parks and Rec programs. And through this process, I had an opportunity to meet many of you, and I want to thank you again for your support. The COVID-19 pandemic will continue to affect our lives for years to come. In the short term, it's possible the city will need to adjust its 2020 to 2021 budget. While there is a lot to learn about the city budget process, having an MBA and running a small business gives me solid background in finance and budgeting. And more importantly, I'm willing to put in the work and time to do a deep dive into learning not only about the budget, but other city council business for the next 5 months in order to be a measured and informed member of the council as critical decisions are made. I recognize the importance of your decision tonight to choose a city council member, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Julie. Next will be Mark Moore, and Mark will be followed by Andy Morin.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I am Mark Moore, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I will do so as rapidly as possible. These certainly are crazy times. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc in all corners of the world, and Folsom is no exception to the economical and certainly the psychological damage experienced everywhere. It is a very critical time, perhaps the most important period Folsom leaders have ever had to face. I want to thank you, our leaders, for the job that you have done to this point. I know that it hasn't been easy, but we know that Folsom is tough and resilient. You see it in our city government, in our department heads and support staff, keeping our vital services up and running through it all. In particular, I want to recognize our incredible first responders, police officers, and firefighters. Most people have no idea what they go through on a consistent daily basis. These past several months have pushed them to their limits of bravery and sacrifice, and they have responded valiantly. We owe them a big debt of gratitude. Now, as we begin to open back up, we still face some very tough challenges and decisions that must be addressed by this council now and into the coming months and years. The hardest part might still lie ahead. In my view, whomever you choose to fill this vacancy should have 3 very specific leadership strengths. The first is critical incident management experience. What does that mean? In a nutshell, it means to have the courage, the focus, and the organizational skills to lead under stressful conditions in order to successfully tackle the important challenges that the council is sure to face. The second is knowledge and insight of the internal workings of our city government. There is little time to learn the real issues from scratch or have a limited exposure to the priorities of our city and what is important for our residents and business owners. The third is character, the integrity to be honest and transparent, the willingness to listen and be open in order to make the best decisions for all concerned, the ability and respect to work well with others, and of course the courage to do the hard things when necessary, even if it's not easy. Proven leadership is what we need. Now, a little bit about me. I spent 30 years serving my community with a career in the fire department. I retired with the rank of captain in 2010. Currently, I am a Folsom Utility Commissioner, having been appointed by Vice Mayor Ernie Sheldon in 2018. That is not where my community involvement ends, however. It's only a small sample of my commitment to Folsom. For example, I have a 100% attendance record at the City Council meeting for over 3 years running. Aside from my own utility commission commitment, I regularly attend the other monthly City Commission and committee meetings, including Arts and Culture, Historic District, Parks and Recreation, Planning, Historic District Parking Solutions, Landscape and Lighting, Traffic Safety, Folsom Prison Citizens Advisory. Additionally, I frequent regional and local board meetings such as the Folsom Cordova Unified School Board, SACOG, SAC-RT, and LOFCO, and numerous other community meetings events throughout the year. To say that it's a huge commitment for me and a sacrifice for my family would be an understatement. But they understand, as I do, that it's necessary in order to truly stay abreast of what's going on in our community. And I am running for Folsom City Council in November. Now, having said all this, although I believe myself to be well qualified and ready, willing, and able to serve, it is my firm belief that appointing an active candidate like myself or a potential candidate interested in running for Folsom City Council this coming November would be highly inappropriate. That would give that individual an unfair advantage over their competition. All the reasons why are obvious, which is why in most other jurisdictions you will discover that painstaking measures are taken to assure that this does not happen. The public perception of individual or government manipulation must be taken seriously, and the election process must not be compromised. Therefore, I implore this council to make the best choice by appointing someone with the ideal experience, knowledge, and character who will not seek to use this rare opportunity to gain personal and political advantage, but will only focus on giving Folsom their all for the next month. Thank you very much, and great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next will be Andy Morin, and Andy will be followed by Dan Neer.
Thank you. Mayor Aquino, council members, it's been a long wait, but I am hearing some wonderful voices this evening, kind of a throwback to the good old days. I'm just going to share a few thoughts, just a few sentences from what you have before you. My interest in adding my name to your pool of candidates is simply to include myself as an option to consider among the many qualified candidate applications you have. I would be honored to bring my many years of city service and recent city council experience back to the city council on an interim basis through the remaining term of the vacated council seat. Having retired from my city council service at the end of 2018, I will not be a candidate for additional city council service. I developed a vast array of city council, regional board, and commission experience during this dedicated stretch of civic service. Service that included support for our successful full-service city charter model, navigating well-managed growth in neighborhoods, businesses, public safety, parks and trails, and the vital city services that support these important facets of our quality of life. I'm just going to leave it there. My only reluctance, and many of you will understand this, is that since my retirement from city council a year and a half ago, I have worn a suit and tie only twice. That was at an aunt's funeral and at Mayor Aquino's State of the City. If selected, I promise to don the suit and tie when required and necessary. So I'll find it in the back of the closet. But I would be honored to be considered, selected, but also, and please understand this, just as pleased to defer to another candidate selected by your sound judgment. Thank you for your city council service. I know how much you work for what you do, and I appreciate your deliberate consideration in this matter. And wonderful seeing you all up there, and your matching face masks as well. So good luck with your deliberations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next will be Dan Neer, and Dan will be followed by Justin Rathel.
Thank you for your consideration. Unfortunately, I wear a suit and tie every day and have for the last 26 years. I'm an advocate for a transparent government which provides equal representation to all of its citizens and governs responsibly. I believe that the citizens of Folsom have come to expect and demand such representation. It is my pledge that I will communicate with all of the residents that I can be the voice to the public that I represent. My wife and I have lived in Folsom 26 years. Our two daughters both graduated from Folsom High School. I'm an attorney and have operated my law practice in Folsom for the past 26 years. I recently retired from employment with the state of California, where I was employed as an attorney in the governor's office. That employment provided me with a vast experience in local legislation. For the past 30 years, I've been involved in local government issues and have raised several issues before this very council. Appreciate your time, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight.
He's got it.
Thank you, Dan. Next will be Justin Rathel, and Justin will be followed by Anthony Reyes.
Good evening, Mayor Aquino, Vice Mayor Sheldon, and council members. It's great to see so many candidates willing to step up and serve in this important role. As you know, I volunteered for the City of Folsom in different capacities since 2014, serving on our Library Commission, Historic District Commission, and currently as the chair of our Planning Commission. I've also served on multiple local nonprofit boards, volunteered in our schools, parks, and on our trails. I'm also a small business owner and entrepreneur here in Folsom. I am running for a council seat this November, and I look forward to gaining the support of our residents in the upcoming election. While being elected is my preferred way to join you on the council, with my business, boardroom, and commission experience, I am prepared to step up if you decide our city would best be served by my appointment. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Justin. The next candidate, Jason Ramos, had to withdraw. And so we next will hear from Anthony Reyes, who will then be followed by Harrison Reynolds.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Tony Reyes, and I'd like to thank you in advance for your consideration. I'm a Sacramento State graduate and a 21-year Folsom resident. I have been active in the local classrooms and the parent-teachers organization where my children attended at Theodore Judah Elementary. Let me explain why I'm interested in this position. As a stay-at-home dad, and as my kids grow their independence, I would very much like to turn some of my energies toward giving more back to this city, helping it continue to evolve and be of service to a community that has enabled such a rich life for me and my family. As a local homeowner, I've noted the significant progress and growth of our city, and I'm proud of the way our community focuses on family life, inclusivity, and progress. I continually keep up on local, state, and national current events to remain knowledgeable about issues that affect our community and society as a whole. And I very much enjoy discussing impressions and interconnected effects with my Folsom friends and neighbors. As a cyclist, I'm out in the community daily, making use of our system of bike trails and bike-friendly roads, unparalleled in the state, if not the country. We have a responsibility and opportunity to instill the values of caring for these assets, like increasing days where children help tend to and care for places like the skate and bike parks, public parks, and trails. While I'm out riding my bike, I've become acutely aware of gaps and bright spots. I can see where we might have homeless people in need of support services, where we have dangerous road or trail conditions, or where we have exciting things happening to spotlight for our community, such as our parks and schools, or places where Folsom residents can volunteer to beautify or invest in our assets. In summary, you have ample qualified candidates, but I think I bring a unique perspective that can lend itself to the City Council for the next 5 months, and I would be honored to join a team and be of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Next will be Harrison Reynolds, and Harrison will be followed by Anna Rohrbaugh.
Mayor, City Council members, good evening. My name is Harrison Reynolds, and I would like to introduce myself. I grew up in Folsom, and I was what was called the last of the first at Folsom High School. We were the first freshman class to go through the new high school, graduating in 2004. I also attended Folsom Lake College, where I received my AA in business. I've been a working member of Folsom for quite some time now, as my first job was out of high school was the opening crew of the BJ's in Folsom. From there, I transitioned to management, a local business, Fats Asia Bistro. During my time, I attended Sacramento State, where I received my degree in environmental studies. During my senior year, I was the project manager of a team of students. The goal of my team was to draft a policy that CSUS would adopt in order to help achieve zero waste on campus. As project manager, I engaged in research studies, drafting policies, communicating with campus stakeholders, as well as student body. I then presented our policy to the president of CSUS, President Nelson. Today, as CSUS alumni, I'm working with a newly hired sustainability policy director to help present the policy to the CSU governing body. Many of the classes I excelled in were law and policy related. Currently, I work at the California Energy Commission, where my team and I develop the Integrated Energy Policy Report, IPER for short. The report is submitted to the legislature to make recommendations on energy-related policies. In my department, I engage with public and stakeholders from all over the state to determine trends, practices, as well as gain insight from what people want to see from the state's energy policy. My past experiences have given me valuable skills in project management, communication, leadership, ethics, and problem solving. Beyond my professional experience, I'm here to be a part of Folsom. I hold my city in high regards as I grew up in Folsom and I've seen it flourish. My parents tell me when Taco Bell on East Bidwell was the furthest thing out. Now we stretch past Highway 50. I've always been interested in public policy, running for student government throughout my educational career. However, I am not a career politician, nor do I plan to be one. What I plan to do, if appointed, is to better serve my community that I grew up in, help represent my neighbors. While I might not be the most experienced person applying, I know that with my drive and guidance from the current city council members, I could become a great member for the city. And if appointed, I know I will work tirelessly to help my local community, to better understand what it is that the Folsom people want and need. And I know with my skills, I won't have a problem reaching out and engaging the public and city leaders to help make this great town even greater. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Anna Rohrbaugh, and Anna will be followed by Bill Romanelli.
Yes, hello. Hi, Mayor Aquino, Vice Mayor Sheldon, and Council Members Howe and Kozlowski. It's my pleasure to be here. And I imagine that I'm sure you didn't expect to be making this decision at this time. As COVID-19 hit, I was also faced with a decision I didn't expect to make. My husband was offered a promotion with his business, but California-based business, to move here, which meant that I would have to vacate my own city council seat in Washington State, which I loved and, frankly, loved governing and representing our citizens. In our research process, we chose Folsom. Now, my son is already at Cal Poly, and my daughter will hopefully physically attend Folsom High School this fall. While there are many similarities in our cities, one of the things that I have noticed the most is, well, first of all, the sun. Washington State, Western Washington is known for rain, and so I've been enjoying the trails and the parks and running out in the community. Well, some people call it, I call it running, some people call it hobbling, but what I've experienced in my time here in Folsom is the incredible kindness and generosity of the community. Not once has someone not either waved or smiled or acknowledged me as I hobbled by. As the community started to open up again the last few weeks, I've seen that in businesses elsewhere throughout the community as well. And it makes me very excited to serve in some way here. I could talk about the similarities of economic development, the issues we talk about, affordable housing, how we help our businesses get back on their feet after COVID. One of the issues talked about today is parking, and we dealt with that a lot there. Those are issues I would talk about if I was campaigning. However, what I see is needed at this time is a caretaker for this position and this council. This is a 6-month appointment, and I will serve this council as your thinking partner until the next council member is elected. After recovering from COVID-19, we will be on an ongoing discussion, and I believe at this time I can bring my leadership, my history, and my leadership ability, my skills, and my council elected experience, because as you know, it is a lot different to be actual elected than it is to want to be elected. But one of the major things I see right now in the next 6 months that Folsom and every other city around the country is going to have to deal with and work through is the Black Lives Matter movement. I come with a balanced and independent thinking approach, and my goal would be to help find a way to make everyone feel as welcome and as accepted as I have felt moving into this community. I will come alongside this council and serve in any way you need me. Great leaders first have to become great followers, and I will serve you and help you with my unique skills in any way I can. With my leadership background and my elected experience, I am dedicated to this city. This is our new home, our new long-term home. As I am new to the city, and with that I bring many positive attributes. I am not beholden to others. I bring a specific set of energy and skills. I have an incredibly fresh perspective, and I have a willingness to serve in this time of need. My name is Anna Rohrbach, and I hope that you consider me and give me a chance to serve in the community that has already given me so much so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Bill Romanelli, and after Bill will be followed by Mark Oosterman. I received an email from applicant David Saycali saying he needed to drop off the call. So we will go from Bill Romanelli to Mark Oosterman. So Bill, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Bill Romanelli, and I want to start off first by saying I'm very moved by the expressions of appreciation and support that all of the candidates have been showing for this city and this community. I certainly share that. And for something maybe a little different than what I hope you'll remember about my candidacy is not so much just my resume, which I know you have in front of you, and my shared love for the community, but the commitment I am willing to make to this council and to the city if I get this appointment. That starts with understanding that this council and the city, what we really need is a very smooth transition into this position so the council can continue to go about doing the business of Folsom and representing its people. I'm in a very good position to help you achieve that goal while at the same time bringing a fresh perspective and working with the city to deal with some of the immediate challenges before that through a productive dialogue and meaningful progress. In terms of that seamless relationship, it's worth pointing out that I'm currently involved with the Folsom Chamber Government Affairs Committee and the Political Action Committee. Through that, I've built relationships with the city manager and the chief of police, as well as other city staff. I've worked with people on the school board. I've worked with leadership at the County of Sacramento and our local elected representatives. These relationships can all help make for a very smooth transition. Looking at my work experience and my community involvement, it's fair to say that that has all been preparing me to step into this role, starting with my participation in the Leadership Sacramento class of 2006 through the Sac Metro Chamber, and as a natural outcome of my 25-year career in public affairs, where all my background and experience in stakeholder communications, issue management, crisis communications, media relations, and other areas can serve the council and the people of Folsom very well. I also want to add that I would heartily take on Mr. Gaylord's former appointments, particularly with the Folsom Cordova Unified School District. As a parent of 2 kids in Folsom's public schools, I share the anxiety of every other parent in this city that wants to know what's going to happen with our kids in school next year and how we're going to make sure that they continue to receive the best education possible. And having said that, while that's an area of personal interest, let me emphasize that I will happily serve wherever the council needs me and where I can make a contribution to the coming year. Finally, as it regards to the coming year, I want to emphasize also that I will commit to stepping down from the council when the term of this appointment is over. I'm not a candidate for city council. I'm not planning to become one. My interest is in helping the council and the city bridge the gap created by Mr. Gaylord's departure and help pave the way for the new council to hit the ground running after the upcoming elections. We have a lot to work on as a city to ensure we continue to be a great place to live, work, and play. We need to do that productively and cooperatively while listening to diverse voices. I've been a Folsom resident for 20 years, and it would be my honor and my privilege to serve the city in this way. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Bill. Next will be Mark Oosterman, and Mark will be followed by Mark Verhoef.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for letting me speak to you tonight. I wanted to come to you to tell you that I am a 28-year resident of the Folsom community. I've served 31 years as a municipal finance professional in the areas of public finance, financial analysis, utility rate setting, contract negotiations, and credit risk management, all with the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. So not only am I very comfortable with Folsom's activities, but also regional activities. And in that particular time, I've had the opportunity to work with many agencies, the Bureau of Reclamation, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, County of Sacramento, City of Folsom, CalISO here in Folsom, Western Area Power Authority here also in Folsom, and also in Yolo County, the Valley Clean Energy Community Choice Aggregators located in Davis. In that time, I've had the opportunity to be appointed to the Public Utilities Commission in Folsom. Ernie Sheldon had appointed me, and that was from 2012 through 2016. And bringing that utility experience to Folsom's utility, I've been able to add a lot of value to some of the staff's endeavors, including some of their water rate setting and things of that nature. And I bring all of this up to highlight the fact that during that time, working with the staff doing that, I've gotten a lot of familiarity with the inner workings of the utility aspect of the city of Folsom, in addition to the fact that my wife has worked for the city of Folsom for 9 years and retired around 2010. So between those two aspects of the city of Folsom, a couple of things stand out to me. Not only can I bring the fact that I can pretty much get up the learning curve of the management of the city of Folsom fairly quickly, having been here a long time and meeting a lot of the staff. And I have to say, the one thing I haven't heard and the one thing I can certainly appreciate is Folsom employees, Folsom staff. They've been very, very professional and had made the decision to apply for this particular position a lot easier because they present in a very coherent manner the issues in front of the commission itself. And I think that's really, really important if you're going to have a 6-month assignment and basically you have to get to the bottom and have a quick understanding of all of the issues in front of you. Not only would I consider myself an analyst and a person to get to that particular position, but my dialogue with the staff has been quite good, and be able to ask a lot of questions both in commission meetings as well as separately on the phone and things of that nature. So it's easy to educate yourself on the issues in front of the city of Folsom. Beyond that, I don't bring any personal issues or agendas to the commission, and I would say basically that my only agenda with the commission would be with the city council would be the city council's agenda, and we would address the issues in front of us in the next 6 months. So that would be it. I would very much like to serve for the city council, with the city council, and with the staff of the city of Folsom. And I know it would be a very pleasurable experience. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mark. Next will be Mark Vorhave, who will be followed by Brian Wallace. Mark, are you with us? Mark, one more check. Are you there? Are you muted by chance? Okay, we're going to move on to Brian Wallace, and Brian will be followed by Eric Williams.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Brian, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Mayor Aquino, members of the City Council. I'd first like to acknowledge my neighbors for answering this call. It's an impressive list of applicants, and we are very fortunate to have so many residents that love this city and are eager to serve. So to all of you that spoke before me, thank you all. A little bit about me. I have been a Folsom resident for 18 years and have actively served on City Commission since 2014. I currently serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I also serve as the Vice President of the Board of Directors at the Folsom Cordova Community Partnership, a board I've served on since 2014. Folsom is my home. I live here. I work here. I play here. My family is proud to call 95630 our home. I have no...
Excuse me, Brian, let me interrupt you for a minute. Please, can everybody who's on the call, can you please mute your phone?
See you tomorrow. Bye. Is that fake tears? I love you.
If you would, please go ahead and mute your phone so that the applicant who's speaking is able to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
I have no political... All right, sorry about that. That wasn't me, by the way. Folsom is my home. I live here. I work here. I play here. My family is proud to call 95630 our home. I have no political aspiration or interest in campaigning for a seat on City Council, but I would be honored to serve my neighbors and as an interim member of council if appointed. I understand the commitment that our City Council makes, and I will too attentively serve. I realize that this is only a 5-month appointment, but you can count on me to do my homework, listen, and work hard to serve the best interests of the residents of Folsom. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and sorry you were interrupted like that. Last speaker will be Eric Williams.
And I am the last speaker, and I appreciate the council taking the time. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, and City Manager. Thank you for providing the platform for residents of Folsom to make our case to represent our city. My background is that of an engineer as well as a physician, and I dearly hold close to my heart the opportunity to give back to my community and to the students. I do feel that our students are the backbone of our tomorrow, and at the end of the day, that is what we want to do in our city. I've lived in the city now for 19 years, and I've appreciated the planning, the past and future endeavors. I have spoken to longtime residents as well as new arrivals. I've seen many changes in Folsom, and I've heard expressions of concern for the future. At the end of the day, though, Folsom is more than homes, more than houses, businesses, Folsom Dam, the place where Folsom Prison Blues was performed, schools, highways that separate our community and people with disparate incomes. We are a city of homes with families who enjoy our expansive 44 trails covering over 300 miles. We're a city of neighbors who meet at Starbucks, more for catching up, going for rides and hikes, than for the coffee. We're a city of schools where our committed teachers can afford to live among our communities. Teachers who know their students and their families and have a vested interest in seeing them succeed. My young people, now 22 years old, still stay in touch with their third grade teacher, Mrs. Williams. after they had gone to Oakchan Elementary. This community is becoming more diverse. It is becoming larger. We've expanded to the south side of 50 and we'll be adding 25,000 residents to the city. The community is becoming more diverse and the residents need to be assured that they are being treated fairly. Despite the thinking right now, they are being treated fairly in these tumultuous times of hurt, fear, and guilt, but more than anything else, increased awareness. We must do the hard work to reassure everyone that their voices are being heard and that we can retain the mantle of one of the best places to raise a family in California. That did not happen without a lot of hard work. Over the last few years, I've seen undercurrents of tension, but I've also seen many sit and speak with each other and grow to understand and accept each other, even when they disagree. And that is very, very reassuring in the city of Folsom. As an engineer, I am a problem solver. That too could cause its own problems. I am presently 5,000 miles away from where I was born. But having lived in Folsom, I have really gotten to know very many people, and I have really good friends here. And coincidentally, I have met one of my high school friends from Trinidad here at Folsom, which was quite a surprise to me. Through working with my students and my patients, as well as administrators, attorneys, staff, I have learned to listen before decisions are made. I am committed to the city of Folsom and my neighbors and the success of their kids as they are of mine. If I am selected, I will do the hard work needed alongside the sitting members of this council to successfully navigate the change and moving the city forward. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for sticking around this long. It's been a long session. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And before we move on, we just want to give one more opportunity for if either Daniel Clark, Mark Menz, or Rick Miller have joined the call. Are any of you on the line? Okay, so that concludes the calls from applicants.
Okay, let me just take an opportunity here on behalf of the council, on behalf of the citizens that we represent, to thank all of you for putting your hat in the ring, being willing to serve the city, sacrifice time away from your family, your jobs, to serve our city. We greatly appreciate it. We have a lot of impressive candidates. You've made our job very, very difficult tonight. Before we get to our deliberating and our vote, is there any member of the public who would like to address the council?
We have 4 cards here.
Come on. Oh, okay, Krista's got it.
Okay, so we have 4 requests to speak tonight. First will be Rosario Rodriguez, who will be followed by, Himanshu, who will then be followed by Bruce Klein, who will then be followed by Stephen Waters. So Rosario, come on down.
We're putting you back down to 3 minutes.
30 seconds. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Rosario Rodriguez, and I am a candidate running for Folsom City Council this November. I want to share my sentiment about the 38 applications that you received. Our city is inundated with talented individuals who would do a great job in this interim role. I ask that you not consider applicants that are campaigning for Folsom City Council to give voters the ultimate decision to choose the next 2 council members. Campaigning in these unprecedented times has resulted in us being extremely limited to reach voters. For an objective outcome, it requires those of us who are campaigning to have the same playing field. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Himanshu. Okay, next speaker then will be Bruce Klein.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Anderson. Thanks for having me here. It's good to be back up here. First, let me compliment you on two things, your response to COVID and also the city's response to the George Floyd incidents and the protests. I can't, so proud of our city for what you did, the messages that you put out there, so thank you. What a great outpouring of applicants. So there's only going to be one picked, and there's 37 other people who ought to come back and fill great commission spots. There's lots of volunteer opportunities in the city of Folsom, so hopefully that energy will flow through. My vision for what would make a great appointment for a city council are a couple things. One, a person who's trusted, one who's known in the community, and who has a strong reputation for integrity. Second, one who has a demonstrated commitment to community involvement over the long term. Next, new leadership. Let's look to new faces and new opportunities. Next is diversity. It's important. We've heard several speakers talk about diversity. And in these times, it is very important for the city of Folsom, in my opinion, to step up and demonstrate its commitment to diversity. Last is the person should not be a candidate for the city council. I appreciate candidate Moore's comments. I know he's filed. And I'm proud to play a very active role in Rosario Rodriguez's campaign for city council, the only candidate for city council that did not submit their name for consideration, and I applaud for doing that. You have two choices, in my opinion. One, a new person, known to all of us, a person who's active in our community, who promotes the diversity concept. The second, you have a proven city council member in Andy Moran. Knowledgeable, well-respected, and really a Folsom icon, in my opinion. I worked with him in my role in the city here for many years, and I can't speak more highly. First, Steve Hurd. I think you have a really great opportunity to select Steve Hurd as the replacement for Roger Gaylord. High character individual, respected, known in the community. You heard from Larisha Johnson tonight and Mr. Butler, who both expressed their desire for the council to address diversity. And of course, Steve Hurd is a man of color, a father in this community, and a very, very active person in all facets of the community. He fits all of the criteria that I articulated. When this position first came available, or when I saw that Mr. Gaylord had stepped down, my very first thought was Steve Hurd ought to be up on that council dais. I'll talk about Andy Moran briefly in a second. Let me just say my history with Steve goes a long way back. And Steve has always been one who was unafraid to talk about challenging issues, old and new. Old, back in the day before people were willing to talk too much about drugs in school, there was a drug problem in Folsom schools. Steve was the guy that talked about that. Steve was the one who raised those issues and got the dialogue going about attending our drug problem, or the drug problem that existed at that time. Now modern day, Steve, as a leader in our community, stepped forth when we had our protest, our opportunity to speak to the George Floyd issues. And Steve has written on various social media platforms in a very articulate, wonderful way. Can't applaud him more for doing what he did. Anna Rohrbar mentioned tonight the necessity of addressing those issues and continue to address it. Folsom is a very inclusive community, and I urge that the council grab that opportunity for diversity. If the council decides that it wants a solid individual and not look to a person who is a newcomer in terms of actually sitting on the dais, Andy Moran is the logical choice. I mean, having worked with Andy for a number of years, he is a trusted leader in the community. Everybody loves Andy across the region. And he's certainly been one of the many great city council members that had. Probably the biggest piece that I loved always watching Andy was sort of like the E.F. Hutton thing. You know, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Well, Andy would sit up there, and it was finally time for Andy to speak. Everybody's eyes watched what Andy was going to do, and he built consensus. So I urge you to appoint one of those two individuals. I really thank you for your opportunity, and I urge, again, all those people who submitted their names who were not selected to please continue your involvement in our great city of Folsom. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Stephen Waters. Okay, so Bruce was your last speaker.
Thank you. So,
Typical attorney, always getting the last word.
Mr. Wong, whoever we choose has to get at least 3 votes, correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. 3 votes, you need a majority vote.
Okay. I want to know from my colleagues, what would be your pleasure? Would you like to go ahead and do a ballot right now and just kind of see where we are? Would you like to deliberate a little bit? How do you want to do this?
I say we just do a ballot now, and then we'll see whether we have to deliberate or not.
Okay. So we will each fill out a ballot and send it to Krista. Ernie, if you could just make your selection and keep it in your head, and then Krista will ask you first who you voted for, but please wait for us to turn in our ballots.
I'd like to interject right now, Madam Mayor. I don't have a ballot, being at home, but I want to be able to vote, and I'll vote, and I would, you know, I just can't do what you guys are going to do, what we normally do if I'm sitting in the dais with you guys. I can't do it.
Right, okay. Hang tight for just a second, Ernie. Okay, so we have passed our ballots to the city clerk, so I'm going to let her go ahead and take this over.
Okay, Vice Mayor Sheldon, if you will let us know who your vote is for.
Okay, I have another question for the mayor. Can we make a comment before we vote?
Sure, go ahead, Ernie.
Okay, I want you to know for 3 hours and 50 minutes I'm sitting on my back in a bed in my house. The fourth time that I missed a city council meeting in 11 years. And it hurts awful bad not to be there with the rest of you. Way back, many years back, I
They're just going to vote now on who they want. Yeah, I know. Andy Moran is running.
Excuse me, I think some of you are on the phone without your phone muted.
I stopped at 8:03.
Mike, are you cutting me off?
Love you. Sorry.
No, Vice Mayor Sheldon, it seems like we have some callers on the line who have forgotten to mute their phone. So if I could please have everybody mute your phone except Vice Mayor Sheldon, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Can I continue my saying?
Yes, Ernie, go ahead.
Okay, as I say, I participated like these candidates. When we decided 2 weeks ago or a week ago to do it this way, I was optimistic because I knew this town and this town. This is a tremendous town, and all the applications that I looked at today bear that out. I know about a third of the people. I'm amazed that I don't know the other 2/3, but they're great. But I have a personal request to be maybe a little bit out of line. You can ignore me later. My first nomination, and most of the time we have multiple ballots, I wasn't surprised. But my first nomination is Jennifer Jones, and that's where, after 10 years, I would love to see her sit next to me on this council so that I can evaluate my 10 years of effort to make her an outstanding planning commission. So at that, if you're willing to accept, I will cut off talking, and I will vote. Are you ready?
Yes, go ahead, Ernie. Who's your vote for?
Okay, my first vote will be for Jennifer Lane.
Okay.
Okay, so Councilmember Howell votes for Andy Moran. Mayor Aquino votes for Stephen Hurd. And Councilmember Kozlowski votes for Eric Williams.
God.
So we have no clear majority.
As I thought. Okay, we're going to vote again?
Can we just do this by voice? I don't see the point in writing this down and passing it down to
We
Krista.
can, yeah.
So can I make a comment?
Sure, of course.
As I said at the last meeting, I'm the only person who was sitting as a council member the last time we had to replace a council member. When John Mesner agreed to fill that seat, he did a wonderful job. John had, at that point, been serving on the Planning Commission for quite a while. We've got 5 months left in this vacated council seat. It's 9 meetings, plus however many other regional boards and commissions we have. If you consider everything else that's going on in Folsom and throughout the planet right now, I'm pretty much going to stick to what I said at the last council meeting. I would like to have somebody in this position who staff is familiar with, that is familiar with the council members, that knows what it takes to get through a council packet, that has served this city in the past for at least 16 years as a council member, has significant regional connections with regard to the regional boards and commissions, and so I'm a huge supporter of Andy.
Okay, Mike, you want to add some comments?
Can I vote?
We're not voting yet, Ernie. Hang tight.
Yeah, so hopefully it's no secret that I have tried to model my service on our former councilman, Andy Moran, and I think the world of him and would be very pleased if he ultimately is sitting here next to me. I do seriously think, though, that while the straightforward thing would be to select Andy, we have some unique situations happening in the world that demand us to think a little bit differently right now. And I sincerely think that either Eric Williams or Stephen Hurd, who are both thoughtful, successful professional people who are perfectly capable of digesting lots of information on short notice, would amply serve the city. So I will make this a little bit easier on the rest of you. I am perfectly happy to vote for any of those 3 candidates if you can reach consensus otherwise. So I think Eric Williams would be ideal, given that we have a pandemic and a diversity opportunity. I think Stephen Hurd would be excellent, and I think Andy would be outstanding. So any of those 3 would suit me perfectly.
Ernie, do you have any comments?
No, I am ready to vote the second round.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and chime in here. I adore Andy Moran. I think he is everything that an elected official should be. And if these were ordinary times, I think, asking Andy to fill in for the next 9 meetings would make sense. But we are in extraordinary times. And, I don't know about my colleagues, but 80% of the time that I spent on the council the last few months is all devoted to 2 topics: COVID-19 and people who who email to say the city isn't doing enough to enforce people to wear masks, and then people who email and say, don't tell me to wear a mask, I don't want to wear a mask. And the other thing is the Black Lives Matter movement. That is what 80% of the calls, the emails, the Facebook tags are that I get. And I think we need somebody who is just calm and trusted and can have an open mind and see both sides of an issue. And, Steve Hurd will always be on my short list for anything because I think he satisfies all those things. But I just want to tell you, prior to that first protest that we had in Folsom. He sent an email to Chief Hillman, to some of our command staff at the police department. He copied me, he copied the city manager, and he said, I want you to know that I'm gonna go to this protest. I'm a person of color, I believe in this, but I also want you to know that I support the Folsom Police Department, and I've called on them, and I trust you, I think you do good work. But it just kind of showed me he's somebody who, people trust him, and he's a consensus builder, and he does try to see both sides. I also think, like you said, Dr. Williams, got to know him a little bit when I was on the school board, and his work in creating an internship program, obviously with his work as a physician with COVID, I would be very comfortable with him also. But my first vote is going to be with Steve Hurd. So I guess with that, we can vote again and see if we get any closer. You want to just do it by voice?
Let's ask Ernie if he has a comment.
Ernie, any comments from you?
Yeah, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and tell us who you're voting for?
Andy Moore.
You guys just want to do this vote? Voice
Yes.
vote? Okay, Carrie?
Andy? While you're thinking, which is not to say that I don't appreciate all of the people that were willing to serve, but this council, separate from what you're getting for emails, we've got other things that we need to do over the course of these next 9 meetings, and for all the reasons that I said last Monday and repeated tonight, that's why I think Andy would be the best choice.
Why don't you?
Is there still somebody not muted?
This is difficult. Yeah, my vote is going to remain for Dr. Williams.
Okay. Eric Williams.
Thank you.
And I'm going to go Steve Hurd.
Then people, we have a problem.
I appreciate the comments about being able to be up to speed and only 9 meetings left, but we're going to have 2 people elected in November, and they're going to be expected to make decisions, in December, just like Mike and I were expected to make decisions when we were elected, a year and a half ago. So,
And it's not like we're lacking for experience on the council right now with Councilman Sheldon and Councilman Howell. We have outstanding training wheels here on the council if that's necessary. And by and large, the operation of the city falls on the city manager. So it's not as though the, whoever takes this seat is going to have to create a budget or going to have to delve into the city attorney's work deeply. They have to make judicious decisions when information is presented to them in these forums. So I can't express my admiration for Andy Moran enough. He's the one that left me with the thought that service on this board wouldn't be easy at times, and that you have to make the right decision even though it may be the less palatable one to some people. And it may be that it's hard to reach consensus at times. And I just think that we have an opportunity right now to demonstrate to a segment of the population of Folsom and to the wider population of the Sacramento area and whoever else may take notice of it that Black Lives Matter and that Black folks are welcome here in Folsom, and they're part of our community. They're part of our long-term history, going all the way back to Folsom's founding, and diversity is important to us.
We've had a Black person on the council in the past. So, I think that I totally appreciate and support all of the things that are happening nationwide. But again, for all of the reasons that I said, I believe that the best choice is Andy.
Ernie, would you
But
be
you
willing?
need to work on Ernie because
Yeah.
I'm not.
Ernie, would you be willing to support Steve Hurd or Dr. Eric Williams?
Let me make a statement. I am a product of a marriage interracial. I married an Oriental person, so I take offense if anybody would assume my negative and not vote for Steve is based on race. That's ridiculous.
No one's implying that, Ernie.
And he's completely ready to move in. I would not change my vote. Andy's my vote.
Okay.
Well, given that situation, as I said earlier, I'd be perfectly satisfied having Andy serve for the 5 months. If we're going to remain deadlocked, that doesn't serve anybody's purposes. I will remain dedicated to helping people get the message out that we appreciate diversity here in Folsom, and I'm willing to vote for Andy Moran.
Okay, so do we need a motion, or what do you want to have happen, Steve? Official vote?
Let's do a vote, please, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Go ahead, Krista.
Okay, so on the nomination of Andy Moran to fill the unexpired term, we'll call the roll at Vice Mayor Sheldon,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
and Aquino.
I'm going to say no, and that's absolutely no offense to Andy Moran, but, okay?
Okay, so the appointment is approved.
Okay. Again, thank you to everybody who applied. We greatly appreciate it. And as was mentioned earlier, there's lots of opportunities to serve, whether it be on a city commission, school board committees, that sort of thing. So we do hope you will stay involved. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to city manager reports.
Good evening, everyone. The Sacramento County Public Health Officer issued a new order last Friday. Many personal care services may now resume operations in Folsom, including nail salons, tattoo parlors, massage therapy, waxing, body art, and piercings. Californians are now required to wear face coverings or masks in public spaces, particularly indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Face coverings or masks are now required at all indoor City of Folsom facilities. Additional City of Folsom recreational amenities and activities have reopened in line with updated public health orders. The Steve Miklos Aquatic Center is now open for scheduled lap swim Mondays through Saturdays. Spray parks at Livermore, Kemp, and Nisenan Parks will open by early July. The Folsom City Zoo Sanctuary will reopen on Friday, July 17th. Advanced online ticket purchases will be required. 3-day Zoo Sanctuary Junior and Senior Zookeeper camps will be offered in late July and early August. The Andy Moran Sports Complex remains open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday for table tennis, batting cages, and pickleball. And the Cummings Skate and Bike Park remains open from 1 to 7 p.m. daily. The Folsom Public Library began a phased reopening recently. The library is open from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesdays through Saturdays for a limited number of visitors to browse, check out books, and use computers. Each visitor will be able to use the library for no more than 1 hour at a time. And again, masks are required. Sign up to read 5 books now through July 31st as part of the Folsom Public Library's Summer Reading Challenge. Kids and teens completing the challenge receive a free book and entry into a drawing for an $100 Target gift card. Find out more at folsom.ca.us/library. The city is updating its housing element and would like to hear the public's thoughts and ideas on housing needs in Folsom. The city is conducting a community survey to gather information on the housing needs and priorities of Folsom residents and to form strategies to meet the city's future housing needs. You can help guide the future of housing by responding to the survey online at www.folsomhousingelement.com/get-involved. And that is all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, you have any comments?
No, just thanks to the staff for pushing so hard to try to get some of these facilities open. Thank you to all of the people that offered to fill the remaining term on that seat. I hope that, it didn't seem like I was not intending to be insensitive, but I've said this all along. I felt very strongly about it. Welcome back, Andy. Everybody, please drive careful. I'm really tired of watching people run red lights and stop signs.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Just two quick things. It was suggested by one of the applicants tonight that our city council meetings had been closed because of COVID. That was never the case. We have had our council meetings on their regular schedule, even though some of us were not in the room for some of those meetings. And then I would caution people just generally, and I heard it from one person tonight, and I don't think they really meant anything in particular by it, but if you're going to use the word transparency, you should think deeply about what that means to you, because you probably mean to use some other adjectives or descriptive accusations rather than a lack of transparency. Our city council deliberations are in the open all the time. Public records are available for everything that we do. And with just the tiniest little bit of effort, you can get a deep dive into virtually any topic that affects our city. So just that's a trigger word for me. I find it to be very frustrating when people throw that around casually.
Including calling or emailing any one of us, because we are all available.
Yeah,
all the time.
my mobile phone number is on the city website, so call me anytime. That's all. Thank you very much to everybody that was an applicant. I feel somewhat inadequate having read all of their capabilities and success stories.
Okay, Ernie, any comments?
Yeah, I do have a comment. I want to thank all those that applied. I'm constantly amazed at the talent that lives in this town. I should not be, because this is a great town. But I want to ask the city manager, in conjunction with the mayor, come up with some system to put these applicants that we have in a category where we can go out and, as they say, farm them for the future commissioners, and maybe someday we'll train a candidate course, you know. But I just want to say thank you for all those 39 people that made the effort. And it just makes me proud that all my 35 years in this town hasn't been wasted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
Good night, people.